Good morning. Good morning. So happy to have you with us right now. My name is Kelly Cook. I am a WMC Action News 5 anchor and reporter, a proud native Memphian, and I am so excited to be with all of these leaders and change makers throughout the city of Memphis and the greater Mid-South. I am honored to serve as your MC for today's symposium. And let me tell you, we've got a lot planned for you. So sit back, relax, get your questions ready. We'll be underway in just a few minutes. On behalf of the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis Board of Trustees and staff, thank you so much for joining us for the third annual Leadership Symposium. This year's theme is Connect, Invest, and Empower. The Women's Foundation is committed to creating a more equitable and just community through connecting with one another to create impactful change, investing in our communities, and empowering women and families to reach their very full potential. Today, you will hear from some of our city's most esteemed community leaders and industry expert panelists who will share their collective inspirational wisdom as well as provide action items to help you take your personal and professional life to the highest level. For those of you who may not know a lot about the great work and the impact that the foundation has had on our city, I want to be sure to share some background information. Because knowing how we got here is super important. The Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis serves as an organization of women helping women to break the cycle of poverty in our community through philanthropy, through leadership, and through collaboration, like what we're doing right now. For 28 years, the Women's Foundation has played a major role as a backbone organization, aligning people, aligning resources, and coordinating community-based services through a multi-generational approach to reducing poverty. And it's working. The Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis was founded in 1995. Since that time, the foundation has invested $35 million in 560 programs serving 8,000 individuals in low-income families annually. Sometimes things get lost in numbers. Let that sink in. $35 million since just 1995. Over the years, I have seen firsthand the work of the foundation and their impact in the community. And I am proud to be involved in their work to support families and help foster leadership among women so that all women and children, all of them, because they all deserve it, in the greater Memphis community can thrive, ultimately reaching their very full potential. All right. This is an exciting time for the Women's Foundation. We are leading us up to the organization's signature fundraising event, the 2023 Annual Tribute Luncheon featuring keynote speaker, drum roll please, Essence Atkins, who will be held next Thursday, April 20th. And we are just 1 week away, ladies, 1 week away. Our keynote speaker, Essence Atkins, has actually sent us a message to share with you. Let's hear what she has to say.
Hello, Memphis. I'm Essence Atkins, and I am honored to be the keynote speaker for the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis Annual Tribute Luncheon. As an actress, an advocate, and a storyteller, I believe in the power of investing in youth and in our communities. That's why I can't wait to join you in Memphis, a unique city full of endless talent, possibility, and the epicenter of hope. The theme for this year's luncheon is Connect, Invest, Empower. As we connect with one another, invest in our passions and in our communities, we can truly empower ourselves and others to create positive change. So mark your calendars for April 20th and join me at the Renaissance Convention Center for a day of celebration, inspiration, and empowerment. Get your tickets now at wfgm.org. I can't wait to see you there.
Essence, we can't wait to see you. Okay, you see there on your screen, that is the annual tribute luncheon. And I hear there are a few tickets left. You know how this luncheon goes. They always sell out and have so many people want to come. So go ahead, get your tickets right now while you still have time. That's Thursday, April 20th. All right, as we get ready to start our symposium, the format of today's program will be a 45-minute panel discussions, followed by 5-minute transitions after each session. So get your discussion questions right now going in your head, because each moderator will take questions from the audience at the end of each session. So be thinking of those. Okay, now that I have shared what to expect throughout today's program, I would like to thank our presenting sponsor. Big thank you to Baptist Memorial Healthcare, as well as all of the other sponsors who helped make today possible. Let's hear a few words from our presenting sponsor.
I'm Anne Marie Wallace, Senior Community Outreach Coordinator for Baptist Memorial Healthcare and a board member of the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis. It is my honor to represent Baptist as the presenting sponsor for the 2023 Leadership Symposium. Baptist has collaborated with the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis for more than 10 years. Today, we are proud to continue our alliance by supporting the Leadership Symposium, which highlights women's leadership in the community. The speakers and industry experts are passionate innovators who are committed to elevating and empowering all women. Each session will provide real-life personal experiences while sharing wisdom and ways that you can advance to the next level, both personally and professionally. The theme for this year's Leadership Symposium is Connect, Invest, Empower. This, too, is critical to our mission at Baptist Memorial Healthcare. We believe strongly in corporate citizenship and recognize the importance of connecting with community partners, faith groups, and government leaders as we invest our resources and time to provide quality health care. We know that serving a community is more than just helping patients feel better. It is about helping entire communities become the best they can be. Like the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis, Baptist supports empowering women and economic mobility for families to build stronger and healthier communities. By helping women and their families succeed, we can improve not only their financial health, but also their mental, spiritual, and physical well-being. Thank you for joining us. We hope that you enjoy the program and are inspired by today's speakers to achieve a greater future.
Thank you so much, Anne Marie, and thank you, Baptist, for being our presenting sponsor for this year's Leadership Symposium. Okay, I hope you are ready for some lively and informative discussions. Our panelists are ready, our moderator is ready, and I hope you are ready too. In the first session, it's called Connecting with Community. Panelists will share how service to the community has influenced their personal growth, their professional development, and corporate responsibility. You will learn how giving of your time through service is a critical component of sustaining and evolving a healthy community and ultimately a healthier you. Kind of like what Anne Marie just said a few minutes ago. Amity Schuyler will be moderating our first session. Amity comes to Memphis with a long history of community engagement in 20 years of cabinet level and CEO roles in the nonprofit, state, and local government sectors. She brings to her current role as the Chief Innovation Officer and Senior Vice President for Workforce Development with the Greater Memphis Chamber, a deep understanding of the importance of creating economic mobility through the creation and access to quality jobs. Amity holds a bachelor's degree in English from the University of South Florida, all right, USF, a master of public administration from Florida Gulf Coast University, an ABD status at the University of South Florida for a doctorate in education leadership. All right, take it away, ladies.
Kelly, thank you so much and welcome everyone. Just a few housekeeping lessons before we really dive into our panel today. We're so excited. Like Kelly said, this is going to be a panel presentation. We will be the only ones on camera, but we can see you through the chat. And so as you have questions, as we wrap up the panel, we'll have plenty of time for questions and answer. Be sure to put them in the chat. If your question is for a specific panelist, be sure that you mention that in the chat so that we can make sure that we get your question answered by the person you'd like it answered by. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. And I am going to start by introducing my friend and colleague, Liliana Ramirez, is a dedicated Ford employee joining the company in 1993 after serving as a civilian logistician for the United States Army. She has a passion for people and manufacturing and is recognized for her ability to develop and execute strategic plans and turn visions into reality. And certainly that is what she is doing here in Memphis with Blue Oval City. In her current role as Director of Workforce Development, she is leading the development and implementation of a world-class workforce development strategies to transform and prepare the manufacturing workforce required for Ford's electrification revolution, with direct responsibility for Blue Oval City and Blue Oval SK battery parks. Liliana is actually in a global role for Ford. In addition, Ramirez serves as a co-chair for Women of Ford Manufacturing, executive sponsor of the Ford Hispanic Network, and a board member of Automation Alley, a nonprofit Industry 4.0 knowledge center. She is committed to mentoring and sponsoring women on both a professional and personal level. Born in Chicago, but she was raised in Colombia, South America. Liliana currently resides in Michigan. She's the proud mother of 3 boys, Bradley, Jacob, and Zachary, and 2 grandsons, Jack Wild and Huck. She inspires her sons to be hardworking, independent, and passionate about life. Welcome, Liliana. Elizabeth Rouse. Hello, Elizabeth is the president and CEO of Arts Memphis. She oversees the organization's support of the Memphis arts community, totaling $3.1 million for 68 organizations and hundreds of artists in 2022. During her 16-year tenure in various roles in Arts Memphis has allocated $56 million, began funding individual artists, and implemented a more equitable grant-making structure that supports more organizations and allows more Memphians to experience the arts. And certainly we see that footprint across our city almost every day. Additionally, Arts Memphis has elevated its role as a convener and connector for the arts sector by helping arts organizations and artists navigate impacts of COVID-19 and plan for a forever changed future. She is a former board member of Memphis Tourism and the Greater Memphis Chamber. She is a native of Mobile, Alabama, and with a business degree from Presbyterian College in Clinton, South Carolina. Rouse is a 2012 graduate of Leadership Memphis, and she is a member of the Session of Idlewild Presbyterian Church. And last but not least, Tracy Walls. Tracy is Managing Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Engagement for FedEx Ground, headquartered in Moon Township, Pennsylvania. Tracy began her FedEx career nearly 12 years ago as a member of the FedEx Global Citizenship Team. She helped develop community relationships and strategies to help support global, national, and local organizations across 6 continents. These include organizations such as Junior Achievement Worldwide, Teach for America, My Brother's Keeper, Memphis Challenge, National Urban League, Facing History and Ourselves, New Leaders, Inc., and many more. She led FedEx Cares community volunteer activities across the globe and has a passion for community engagement. In 2020, Tracy assumed her current role at FedEx Ground, where she oversees the company's strategy and action plans related to diversity, equity and inclusion, culture, employee engagement, and experience and succession and planning. Prior to joining FedEx, Tracy spent 12 years at International Paper, working across the global customer service roles in supply chain and logistics. In each of her roles, she has been a leader in developing team members and collaborating with organizations to expand educational and career opportunities in diverse communities. She is currently serving as an advisory council member of the Make-A-Wish Mid-South and governing board member of the Grizzlies Prep Charter School. Tracy and her husband, Kevin, reside in Memphis and are the proud parents of 2 young adults, Deja and Sydney. Okay, ladies, I am so excited to jump into our conversation this morning, so let's get started. Tracy, I think we can all agree that just based on the number of women who have stopped everything that they were doing today to join us online, there's a powerful and common agreement about the importance of serving our communities. But would you kick us off by sharing with us your thoughts on just how important serving a community is and maybe what your philosophy is about the importance of community investment?
Sure. And I just want to say thank you to the Women's Foundation for the opportunity to join this conversation this morning. I'm really excited to be a part of this because, as you mentioned earlier, community is a passion of mine. And I've had an opportunity to engage in this both from a personal standpoint, but also my day to day activities. So I consider that a unique blessing and opportunity. My philosophy when it comes to community is really simple. I know that there's, an opportunity for everyone, every individual to help the community in some manner. Sometimes we think of community giving as a more formalized process, and there are formal aspects to giving. But personally, I think that there are several ways that we can give to the community individually. And I think it's everybody's responsibility as a member, as a citizen of the Memphis community or the community of the globe to give back in some way. And when I think about the informal approach to giving, it could be something as simple as giving, of your time, giving of some of your own personal financials. But the most simplest way could be something as simple as giving your heart, having that empathy for one another. It could be something as simple as a smile in the grocery store. Everybody's going through things, you never know what, but sometimes a smile can be a really discreet way of kind of giving and contributing to someone's mental health, and we may not even know it. And then those more formal opportunities sometimes can come in the way of corporations. Like, I'm very excited and happy to be a part of the FedEx family. And that's really kind of the thread of our company. At FedEx, we are about to celebrate this Monday, mark your calendars, it's FedEx 50th anniversary on April 17th. And from the start of our company, we have always looked for ways that we can help the community. And by doing so, FedEx has a long history of being able to provide individuals with education so that they can provide access to jobs to individuals. We've invested in transportation so that people can get on a bus or have some type of transportation or train to get to a place, to interview, to get a job. All of our efforts in trying to help people to gain wages and meet their basic needs of housing and food and shelter, healthcare and childcare. So my philosophy is simple. We can give individually, we can give as a corporation, but the important thing is to give.
Thank you, Tracy. What a great way to kick us off and a call to action for this entire event today. Liliana, like Tracy, you work for a global company and it's full of women in leadership roles. How do you think the attributes of women's leadership align with and support community building and giving back to community?
So before I answer that, thank you. And again, thank you for the Women's Foundation as well, to you. And I'm just humbled to be part of this panel, just listening to everybody's bio. And so thank you for having me. So when I think about your question, first thing that comes to mind is really communication and relationship building. But beyond that, I think that often our leadership style is more transformational versus transactional. And so what do I mean by that? Transactional normally is just focusing on tasks to meet an objective. And so, yes, we focus on tasks to meet objectives, but from a transformational perspective, it's more about having a vision, right? So our approach may be more holistic in nature, looking at maybe beyond a task. You're looking at healthcare, at education, at childcare, at transportation, at job opportunities, right? So I think that often we look at the entire system's needs versus just the individual parts of that system.
Thank you, Lil. And Tracy, coming back to you for just a moment, FedEx is such an integral part of so many communities, but certainly many would argue it is the heart of Memphis. So how has your role as the Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Engagement at FedEx really helped shape and influence your personal philosophies and importance of giving back to your community?
Yeah, good question. And I would say, personally, before joining FedEx, I have had an affinity to giving back to the community. I worked, as you mentioned, at International Paper for about 12 years. And then I had a couple of years where I had the opportunity to uh, stay at home and take care of some family needs here and really use some of that time to give to the community. So I started out by going into the school, my kids' elementary school at the time, and volunteering in the library. Something as simple as putting some books on the shelves actually gave me some sense of fulfillment. I enjoyed that experience. And that library book uh, task slowly increased where they started saying, hey, can you come in for this? Can you come in for that?
Mhm.
Then I joined the PTA and eventually became one of those I call overachiever moms that would come to the school at 9 o'clock in the morning and I would leave at 4 o'clock with the kids. And, it was as if I had a full-time job without the financial pay. I could say there was some personal fulfillment in that. But nonetheless, that's kind of where I really honed in on that desire to want to work and do something in the community. Well, I thought I was going to go back to school and try to get a degree that enabled me to work in the school, but I had an opportunity to join FedEx. And interestingly, that role was the corporate social responsibility department, where I was assigned the portfolio for education. And so in that role and over the years of time, I've had an opportunity to, learn and really expand that personal interest in community giving in a more formalized approach, right? I started to understand like how to be strategic about giving. Working at FedEx exposed me to the needs of our Memphis community and the needs across the globe. When nonprofit organizations and individuals would make requests, that kind of enlightened all of us of kind of like what's important to people in the community and what can we do as a company to help the need. And while it takes time, you can't do it all at once. It really helps me to kind of understand what's happening, what's needed, and then figure out a way that we can really measure the impact. And measuring impact is very important because that helps you kind of chart your course and figure out what's working well, what's not working well. And sometimes I keep talking about how simple giving is, just being able to watch and see how a small investment in a community outside of the country in some rural areas to pay for a crossing guard to help children cross a street save lives. Something that what we would call simple had a major impact in the community. So I love being here because not only was that part of my job, but as part of the job, we have so many people in our company who have other jobs, but yet they prioritize volunteering. We have a program called FedEx Cares, and that's what we named the program where we encourage volunteerism. And we have a plethora of people who just do that on their own, and we thrive in that space.
Thank you, Tracy. Speaking of metrics and measure, Elizabeth, 56 million. Arts Memphis has allocated 56 million to the arts within the community. And that has to come from a place of deep passion in your leadership walk. Tell us a little bit how you've turned your passion into action for change in the community.
Sure. Well, thank you. It's great to be here this morning, and especially great to be in some ways representing the nonprofit community that is so interconnected with the corporate community in Memphis. And so it's great to be here today. Thanks to some college internships and some really great mentors, I discovered a long time ago that I could actually have a career in the nonprofit sector and be focused on the community every single day. And I'm really grateful that 17 years ago, I ended up at Arts Memphis, which is an organization that was actually started 60 years ago by volunteers who saw an opportunity and a need in Memphis and stepped up to make a huge difference in our community that now, since 1963, has actually invested more than $94 million in the Memphis arts community. And we do that, and we are able to do that because of contributors, and not just financial contributors, but volunteers and people who are passionate about change in the community. I love my work, and I think the thing I'm most passionate about is the fact that I get to work with a variety of people every single day. Artists, arts organization leaders, donors, corporate leaders, community partners. And this role of connecting people is probably what I'm most passionate about, and what I've had a great opportunity to do here in Memphis that has enabled Arts Memphis to now support more than 68 arts organizations and hundreds of artists who are using the arts as a way to help people heal, to bring people together, to bridge differences, to offer opportunities for our youth, and so much more. And so some of the biggest changes that have happened in recent years that I'm most excited about, and that have happened because of passionate community members and a passionate team and passionate board members and passionate volunteers, are that Arts Memphis has opened up our grant making to now be accessible to every arts organization in Shelby County, regardless of how long they've been around or what their mission is or what their budget size is. And ultimately, that is important because, as Amity said in my bio, it's about ensuring that more people in Memphis have access to the arts. And the second thing is seeing how important connection is and how committed Memphis is to making things happen quickly through focus on the community. In March of 2020, we had a number of corporations and foundations step up very quickly, as artists were some of the first people in our community to immediately lose work during the pandemic. And because of volunteers and funders, and because Arts Memphis had connections with these passionate people, we have been able to invest over $800,000 directly in individual artists, which was not a big part of our mission before. And so it's been amazing to see how important bringing people together really is to help people in our community. So I'm passionate about the arts, but even more than that, I'm passionate about what can happen when people come together.
Elizabeth, that's such a testament to what is possible when you lead from your passion and give back from your passion. So I'm just a little curious, Elizabeth and Liliana. Let's start with Elizabeth and then we'll go to Liliana. As you've progressed in your leadership roles, do you have a personal motto or mantra that inspires your leadership and your commitment to giving back? Like when reach one, teach one is one that, I came up under in my first beginning years as a classroom teacher. But I'm just curious, do you have anything that's really just stuck with you as you've developed your lens on giving back and community leadership? Elizabeth?
Sure. I have to say that the motto of the college I went to, which was a very small school in South Carolina, was Dum Vivimus Servimus, which means while we live, we serve. And that has stuck with me and has very much driven a lot of my work, both professionally in the nonprofit sector, but also personally in some of the volunteer work that I do outside of my day-to-day work. But I also have a quote right now on my desk that I was thinking about this morning. In the early pandemic days, when I was doing every Zoom I could because I was so eager to figure out how I was going to lead this organization through these unknown times, I was listening to a corporate executive who I happened to know pretty well give a presentation, and he said, focus on what you can control. And that has really it's sat here on my desk for the last 3 years. It's been a really important piece of my leadership. And I think as volunteers and community members, there are so many opportunities to get involved, and it's important to focus on those things that you think are important. And so that's one of my current favorites.
Great. Liliana?
So for me, it's not necessarily a quote, but we grew up with the golden rule, right? Treat others the way that we want to be treated. And so some years ago, equally as important, I learned about the platinum rule. And what the platinum rule is treat others the way they want to be treated. Mm-hmm. And learning that concept of, so shifting that mindset allows me to come in, and it's not really about yourself, it's about others. And so meeting people where they're at, their uniqueness, their needs. And so that's really what drives everything that I do, honestly, how I show up and how I connect with people, how I learn what those needs are of the community. Example, when I started working on this project, it was really immersing myself in trying to understand those unique needs of West Tennessee so that I can see how I can support. So to me, that aligns with the giving back. And so it's about, yes, the golden rule is very applicable, but the platinum rule is equally as important. Do unto others as they want and what they need. So it's more of not a motto, but a rule.
I love that, Liliana. We're all going platinum today in a different way. Let's do a quick round robin lightning round. We have to be concise, ladies, because we do want to be able to get to question and answer. You're all in such unique and pivotal roles. Liliana, you're a head of global workforce. Tracy, you are sitting in a DEI role for leadership across a global company. Elizabeth, you are impacting art from the very top artist all the way to the household and the classroom in Tennessee's largest urban community. How can you identify one example or just one how of how your current role has allowed you to engage in a solution for making the community better? Let's start with Liliana and then Tracy and Elizabeth. Go.
Okay, fast. Sort of. So September of 2021, I have responsibility for training and preparing the workforce to do a job within the plants. So we announced that the plant in the Louisville City in Tennessee, I was sent down to look at training, what is needed in terms of training. I spent a week, and you were part of that, Amity. So I spent a week talking to the community, to the chambers, government officials, to educators, to students and parents. And my lens at that point was training. After being here for a week and talking to people and the emotion, the tears of people, so the gratefulness of there's a possibility that we can create something where my children and my grandchildren are going to be able to stay in Tennessee and not leave. It completely shifted my purpose and my mission of the work that we were doing, and I haven't left. And so the workforce development director. My responsibility, like I said, is preparing the workforce at the plant level. But it's not just training. So my team and I are working on the skills and the knowledge, the development of those skills and knowledge in support of preparing Tennesseans for careers, right? For that viability, for ensuring that families are reaching that full potential. And so that's an example.
Thank you, Lil. We're so glad you sought first to understand when you arrived in Memphis. Tracy, and then Elizabeth.
Yes, very similar to Liliana. In this particular role for diversity, equity, and inclusion at FedEx Ground, I had an opportunity to do something kind of similar. To create the strategy for this role, we needed to really understand the environment, and so we had an opportunity, myself and my team, to go out to the different hubs and stations that's across the U.S. and just kind of talk to our most diverse population, our frontline team members, our package handlers, and just kind of talk to them about what they want to do and what do they want to, what are their aspirations? And many of them would say they wanted to move up. I want to make more money, obviously, like everyone, in order to support their families. But one of the opportunities is they didn't always know what opportunities existed within the company. So as part of a program that we call Purple Pathways, our team developed a way that we can actually share with them career paths. So if you are a package handler and you aspire to do another role, we have it available so they can understand what's needed in order to get to those roles. It's not a job description. It's very succinct, very easy to follow, something quick. They have access to it on their phones or where have you in order to help them create a path. And if you know what you want to do and know what you need to do to get there, then that will help them with their career advancement. It would also help them with their families. And more importantly, it creates a hope for individuals. And so for me, that is an internal community. It's not necessarily the external community, but those are our people, our family inside that we got to help them help themselves. So I really am excited about that. And then the second program, I'll tell you really, really quickly that my colleagues worked on at FedEx Logistics in regards to HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. They were able to set up a pipeline. I'm sorry, it was a satellite that was set up at a HBCU, where now individuals who aspire for jobs can literally on the campus, it's staffed by students, can work for FedEx on the campus and then give them some experience in the workforce, which gives them, part-time work where they can get some financial experience and also experience for their resume. So a couple of ways that we focus on it internally and externally.
Thank you,
I'm gonna call
Tracy,
you.
so much. And I would say, Elizabeth, you single-handedly sustained and saved art. I mean, not single-handedly, but with the support of your community. And so I'm going to just give that as a shout out as one of the examples before you even start. But just an example of how you've been able to really change the community through your leadership role.
Yes, the last several years and the ways people have stepped up have been huge, because the arts are still around. And in fact, this weekend, there are hundreds of opportunities for Memphians to experience the arts in almost every zip code in Shelby County. So we are grateful for that. Just one example that came to mind, one of our lines of work is working with Memphis companies to support the arts more efficiently and effectively and in ways that align with their corporate goals. And so we work with a number of corporations in Memphis. And I can think of an example of a time when we were hosting a grant panel in our office for a local company to meet with arts organizations. And some of the executives around the table and employees said, ask this arts organization, what do you really need? And through a lot of conversation, it turned out that really they needed expertise more than they needed funding. And so this company helped put together a team to help an arts organization address what was a business model that was not working, and an organization that did not have a marketing plan. And that organization is now thriving today. And the company is able to use that as an example of a group that they have helped that is critical in Memphis, as we all hope to use the arts as a tool to recruit and retain talent. And so many times there are volunteer opportunities and that may to use for an employee to use their skills that may not be, working at a food bank or building a house. While those things are really important, there's so many ways for people to use their passions and what they're very good at during the workday to help organizations. So.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about helping organizations. We are all extremely invested in our day-to-day life. Sometimes we get our head down and we can't see the forest for the trees and what the need is. Elizabeth, for the folks joining us this morning, how do you recommend that people find ways to engage in community service opportunities? Shameless plug, there is always the Women's Foundation. As a board member, I will say that. But in addition to the Women's Foundation.
Definitely. In addition to the Women's Foundation, there are many great organizations in Memphis. Some that come to mind are Volunteer Odyssey and Leadership Memphis's Volunteer Memphis program. There are organizations like New Memphis Institute and the Junior League that are great resources for women to get connected in their community. I think one of the best things about Memphis is that it's pretty easy, if you decide you want to do something, to jump in and get involved and make a big difference. And sometimes finding out about those opportunities or connecting with things that you may have heard of, or organizations that may have piqued your interest, or causes that you may be passionate about. Sometimes you just may mention it to a colleague or friend, and it's amazing how connected people are in our community, and hopefully can help you get involved. And also, as a nonprofit, we are grateful anytime someone calls up and says they want to get involved with our organization. And so don't be afraid to just reach out with an email or phone call or Instagram message or something like that.
Great. And then for folks that don't think that they're good at anything. So you heard Tracy talk about her role in volunteering inside of the schoolhouse. She went from something very small to something very large for full school days. When I come from education, but the only thing I was really good at volunteering for in education was clean up in the lunchroom. And so, Liliana, when you talk about personal and professional growth and mixing that and connecting that to community service, your professional experience doesn't have to translate, and sometimes it can translate. How do you connect the two and make sense of, in your role when you're coming from workforce, and not only workforce, but workforce in manufacturing and community engagement?
I think overall, personally, it helps me reflect on my beliefs, my passions, and align those values to my beliefs, right? And so in some cases, it actually has helped me find my own passion and purpose during some of my most difficult times in my life. Kids were all off to school, and I found myself volunteering in a seniors home during the holidays, people that didn't have families. And I thought I was giving because, like you, I didn't know I didn't think I was good at anything. So I thought, okay, I'll go and talk to somebody that needs, family during the holidays. But what happened during that time really was healing for myself. So you're thinking that you're giving, but what's happening really is what you're getting out of it, that goodness, right? And for me personally, that healing was happening professionally. Just the skills, right? The development of skills, because you end up leading different efforts, the connections and the network and the friendships that happen just organically and naturally. It's just beyond anything that I can explain, the excitement, right? And that heartfelt goodness that happens. We're working right now, that professional and that that's happening with the workforce, the skills in the education. We started looking at these mechatronic e-labs, right? And so all of a sudden, it's not just Ford Motor Company looking at that, right? There's the chambers that are coming with us to go and look at them. There's the different companies, there's the suppliers, and everybody's knocking on the door. How do I become part of this? And so to me, that professional and that personal just links, because it's all about goodness. So not necessarily just so you're growing and you're developing as you're taking action, but it's also supporting the company, but beyond the company, just the broader, Memphis, West Tennessee, the world, if you think about it holistically. So
that's powerful. And that brings us full circle to the way Tracy started us out, saying that if anything, we can all give of our hearts. And that means just giving empathy and grace every single day as a first line of giving, and then seeking out those connections to give back to community is an important next step. As the questions are coming in, and we're fielding a couple of those, and they're popping up in the chat, I wanted to ask each of you, we are standing on the shoulders of the sheroes that came before us, every single one of us in our respective roles. Out of respect for those women who built us, who are the mentors who inspired you to be involved with your community, whether that's your local community or your global community? Let's start with Elizabeth and then go to Tracy, then Liliana. Elizabeth?
Well, I have to say that definitely my grandmother and my mother were my early women who inspired me, and I got to watch especially my mom and the work she did in the community, in our community, and that has played a huge role. But also a previous supervisor who just really encouraged me to not focus too much on work, and to how important it was to dedicate time to community, and how that would both be fulfilling personally, but also help my career long term.
Great. Tracy?
I too, my mom was a teacher, my father was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher. So to me, teaching in itself is a community giving effort. But when I think about my real learning and experience with community efforts, I learned everything I know from Rose Jackson Flanoral. She was someone that I watched afar when I was at International Paper. I had the privilege to work for her several years in that corporate social responsibility space. And I got to witness firsthand not only what she did for the company and the community investments, both with volunteering and the financials, but I saw her and everything she did personally, that long hours that she spent, really invested in these causes, the passion that she evokes is amazing. And I'm just so thankful that I passed cross, because I learned a lot from her and still learning from her today. So that's who I would say is my mentor.
And Liliana?
And so mine, I have two women that, so colleagues of mine, Alba Contreras Rodriguez and Claudia Arana Sanchez. And so throughout our careers, we were growing up together, right? So I was in that, what you were explaining earlier, Amity, just sink or swim type of situation. You're raising 3 kids, you're working in a plant, and I don't have time for anything because I'm just trying to survive. And these two women, I watched their relentless and selfless actions day in and day out. And they didn't give up on me. And they are really the ones that taught me that I had a responsibility and a duty. So it wasn't really a want or, a nicety. I had a duty and a responsibility to pay it forward. And so it's these two women that kept knocking on my door day in and day out. And I would watch at the end of a really long day, we'd all be exhausted. The next morning, I was still exhausted. And they'd come in with this pep and this excitement and this energy. And I'd be sitting back, okay, whatever it is that you are having at night, I want some of that. And it ended up being really that service and that community work and that selfless and relentless giving that they day in and day out provided. And I'm just really fortunate that they didn't give up on me. And they taught me about my responsibility, whether it was going once a week to go to the seniors' home, if that's all I had, or once a month, or now, ingraining myself into a community so that we can help with development of a pipeline. So those two women were really strong women that taught me.
Love that. And just this is one of those moments where you wish every woman could also begin to share the shoulders that they are standing on, because this is where our connectedness really gets woven tightly. Ladies, we have some questions coming in. First, I want you to know that people are just so appreciative, it looks like in the chat, of and resonate with leading from passion and then giving passion back as a result of that and getting it back as well. And so that seems to be a common theme. But one of the questions that we have is, are either of you, any of you, willing to share any hurdles that you faced along the way in your career path to get to the positions that you are now? And I'm going to narrow that a little bit, because since our focus right now is around giving back and connecting with community, was there ever a community service program or a new community-based program that you really struggled to get off the ground? And if so, how did you overcome that?
I would speak in general. I don't have a specific program. I mean, all programs sometimes can be kind of challenging, but when I think about a hurdle that I had to overcome or a challenge is when I joined the company and was, and it was fast paced. Things were already going, just kind of jumping on the cart and trying to roll with everybody else who seemed to know so much about the space, and coming in new and not knowing, kind of that self-doubt, like, can I really do the job that I need to do? Can I really, because it became personal, right? If you're helping a nonprofit organization succeed, you want to be able to think the right way and make the right decisions. And there are always so many opportunities to give, and you have to narrow that scope. You can't give to everyone. And so when I started, the challenge was my own confidence, if you would say, could I do this? But I'm thankful to have worked alongside some of my peers and my leadership that really coached me, and kind of pushed me to do things when I may not have been as comfortable, even something as simple as presenting or attending some, dinners where I didn't know anybody, had to walk in and walk around and meet people. But, those experiences kind of helped develop who I am today. So thankful for them. It's always something new.
Great advice. Yes, great advice. Ladies, we've talked a lot about community today, and we're using it in so many different ways. There's community of your neighborhood, community inside of a zip code, the global community, the community of women, the community of professionals, the community of manufacturing, arts, logistics. When we think about giving back and really making an impact inside of community, sometimes it can feel too big or too intimidating. So let's just kind of start with, what does community mean to you when you think of giving back? Can you bottle that up for us before we depart one another today? Liliana, can we start with you?
So community to me is all about people. And so it's about people coming together for a greater good. And so it doesn't matter where you're at physically. It can be, if it's a physical space where things like job opportunities, public education, access to health there, we're looking at that. But it can also be a community of women, a community of Hispanics, right? It's about people having that common need, that common goal. And so I think that people coming together and working together for that common goal, wherever it is that you're at within the globe, within a physical space, with internal to the company, external to the company, to me, that's what community means.
Wonderful. Elizabeth, how about yourself?
That was great, Liliana, and I agree. And I think it's important as volunteers, just looking at the chat, to define what community they're focused on and want to focus on, and that many times empowering teams is really encouraging people, I think, to be committed to what they're most passionate about and focusing in on a specific community rather than trying to spread themselves too thin. I think that enables people to really connect and make a greater difference long term.
That's a great point, Elizabeth. And that takes us to our final question of this amazing panel of phenomenal women. And as you mentioned, leading from your passion, how do you do that in an environment that has a very clear and defined vision and goals that just might not align with your passion? Liliana, what if your passion was art and you were in a manufacturing environment?
Yeah. I think that externally is where I would find that passion, but then internally within my own work, whatever I did, right? If it was art, maybe a document that I would put together, maybe would have a little bit of a artistic aspect to it, right? And so, but I also think that challenging the status quo also. So it may be that, your environment is very clear and doesn't allow for that. But I think that part of what our duty and our responsibility is to have the difficult conversations and challenge it. And it may be that it's going to take a day or a year or 10 years, but don't give up, and then get a community and find those other people that have a passion, and then together challenge that status quo.
What a great way to take us home. Ladies, it has sincerely been my pleasure to be with you this morning and with all of you online. On behalf of all of the board members for the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis, as well as our president and CEO, Shante Avant, thank you for your investment in one another this morning. And we are going to turn it back over to our amazing MC and host, Kelly. Hello, Kelly.
That was amazing. Thank you so much to our panelists for sharing your thoughts with us today. What I took away from that and hearing what you ladies had to say was, I kept hearing the word passion, right, Amity? Passion, 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 and leading with passion. I'm a storyteller. That's what I do for a living. I'm a reporter and an anchor. And I'm telling you, my best stories, the ones I always get response from, is the ones that, ironically, is something I'm incredibly passionate about. Yeah. And that's not by coincidence. And hearing your stories really set that home. So thank you to Tracy, Elizabeth, Liliana, and Amity for all of your thoughts and sharing your stories with us today. Did you guys learn a lot? I know I did. That was fantastic. Very, very insightful. Okay. To take this time to hear from our audience. Please share a few words about how you are feeling after the first session. I want you to jump in that chat right now and share some of the few positive comments that we have. We've had a few from Shante Avant. I heard that. She said, I love the platinum rule. I do too. Do unto others as they would like you done unto you. Think about the they. Do unto other as they like done unto you. So please, please, thank you again. I think that was Liliana who shared that. Thank you, Shante. Paula Jones also shared, I love the saying, lead with passion and give back with passion. Yes, 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 yes. I'm telling you, the passion element of it was a really telling story. So thank you so much for some of your comments. Keep them coming in the chat if you have any, and talks amongst yourself there. But right now, I hope you are ready because we are giving away 2 beautiful signature scarves created by renowned designer Hilton Hollis. Take a look at that. Each year, longtime friend of the Women's Foundation for Greater Memphis, Hilton Hollis creates a scarf specifically for the Women's Foundation. Thank you so much to Independent Bank for sponsoring our beautiful signature scarf, getting us ready for the spring. Now, these scarves usually sell for $65, but we want to give 2 of them away today for free $99. Okay. Who's ready for a little trivia? I will ask a question and you will type your answer in the chat box. Okay. You ready? The first person to correctly answer, you will win. And the Women's Foundation team is taking a close look at that chat to answer these questions. All right. You ready? Hands on keyboard. Here we go. Who was the founder of the Women's Foundation for Greater Memphis? Go. Who was the founder of the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis? All right, here. Let's see. We got any winners? Did we stump them? I don't know. Did we? Wait a minute. They're coming in. I need a judge. Or we got one that's got the first name. I got one with the last name. Is that going to work? Oh, wait a minute. Okay. I'm seeing the answer. I'm going to wait for the judges to make sure they can decide who was the first person in order to answer the question. But the answer is Freddie Buckman. Miss Buckman, congratulations to our winner, which I am sure the winner is Shayla. Yes, they said Shayla got it in first. Congratulations. Congratulations. A member of the foundation staff will follow up with you to make sure that you receive your scarf. Thank you for your participation, ladies. Okay, I have one last note before our first session begins. Be sure to share any great quotes or advice from on Facebook Slide, Instagram, and Twitter. I want you to add WFGM_org, hashtag Women Empower 901, Ignite Your Spark 22. Once again, that's hashtag Women Empower 901 and hashtag Ignite Your Spark 22. And again, we want to thank our sponsors for making today possible because we've had our first session and it was fantastic. Learned so much. Okay, let's go into our next session, leading with authenticity. In this session, panelists will share insights on how discovering your own purpose will help you lead others with authenticity. You will learn tips and strategies for personal and professional growth and how to be your best and most authentic self. Trivia Chapman will be our next moderator. She is a native Memphian and serves as the president of Bank of America, Memphis. She has more than 20 years of experience in the banking industry and is active in Bank of America employee networks, including its Black Professional Group and Leadership Education, Advocacy, and Development for Women Group. She leads the effort to deploy Bank of America's resources to address social and economic concerns, build strong communities, and support the health and safety of local teammates. Chapman has a bachelor's degree in business administration from Tennessee State University, go Tigers, and a master's degree in business administration from the University of Memphis, go tigers. She likes the tigers. I'm telling you. We are ready to get ready for another fantastic session. I hope you are ready. Let's get started. Take it away.
Good morning. I am so excited to take you into session 2. Again, I'm Travia Chapman, and today we're going to talk about leading with authenticity for the 2023 Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis Virtual Leadership Symposium. I am so excited to be sitting here today in our hometown, and listen, session 1 was amazing, and I have a great group of women that will stack hands to build on the great nuggets you've already gleaned thus far. It is our hope that at the end of this session, you will understand more about the benefits of bringing your whole self to everything you do, aligning your purpose to your leadership, and increase your confidence to go forth boldly and unapologetically, ready to show the world who you are. Just as session 1, the last 10 minutes of our session today is reserved for Q&A. Please place your questions in the chat as we journey through the discussion. If your question is one for one panelist in particular, please indicate that in the chat with your question. Of course, we will not make it to all of your questions, but we will work with the Women's Foundation to get them answered for you. So joining us today are 3 powerhouse women that are leaders across multiple industries. Let's meet them. Attorney Tanera Gibson is a member of Birch, Porter & Johnson, a member of the firm's management committee, and the immediate past president of the Memphis Bar Association. She focuses her practice on employment law, municipal law, healthcare liability, and commercial and business litigation. Tanera was awarded the 2019 Larry Dean Wilkes Leadership Award by the Tennessee Bar Association's Leadership Law Program. She was named Best of the Bar by the Memphis Business Journal in 2019, received the National Bar Association's 2020 A.A. Ladding Award for Legal Excellence, and was named a change maker by the Shelby County Commission in 2022. Of all of her community activism and work, she serves the greater community as a board member and chair of the Risk Management Committee for Agape Child and Family Services, and is a fellow of the New Memphis Institute. And that's just to name a few, y'all. Tanera earned her JD from the University of Memphis Cecil C. Humphrey School of Law. Welcome, Tanera. Shalia Harris is a servant leader and proud Memphian with over 15 years of building sustainable partnerships, effective teams, and delivering innovative strategies towards change in both the public and private sectors. She currently serves as the Corporate Affairs Manager for the Delta Division of Kroger, managing government affairs, media relations, and community engagement for 93 stores covering 5 states with the purpose of feeding the human spirit every day. She was acknowledged as one of the top 40 under 40 professionals by the Memphis Business Journal, a New Deal progressive leader, and Walk by Faith humanitarian, just to name a few. She received a master's in education at Friedman Hardman University and a bachelor's in marketing at the University of Memphis. A leader in the community, Shalia currently represents District 5 as a Memphis Shelby County School Board Commissioner. She also serves on numerous boards, including Junior Achievement and New Memphis Institute. Shalia, thank you for being here. Sally Pace is CEO of Connect Healthcare Collaboration, the marketing engine that powers the benefits industry and connects benefits advisors, employers, and healthcare solutions. In addition, Sally served as Senior Vice President in Marketing and Communication for FTN Financial, the fixed income sales research and trading arm of First Horizon. She has held a variety of positions with AutoZone and at HGTV. Sally also played an integral role in the development of a program called Memphis Connect, a tool used by the city's corporate leaders to attract and retain talent. Sally has been doing work, y'all, here in Memphis and in Italy. In 2019, Connect was recognized as a World Congress Health Value Award finalist and has been accredited by the Validation Institute. Outside of her work, she is board chair of Memphis Tourism, a past president of the Junior League of Memphis, and serves on the board of Nexus. Sally, it's good to see you. So, ladies, let's jump in. Authentic leadership. 2 words that can be seen as the greatest oxymoron. Leadership is a balance of maintaining truth to self and maintaining alignment with purpose. Today, we are going to look at what it means to bring your entire self to everything you do, boldly, courageously, and with audacity. So, Tanera, let's start with you.
Okay.
Please share in 2 words what authenticity means to you and who comes to mind when you think of an authentic leader.
So 2 words I'd say that describe what authenticity means to me would be your truth. And, I'll sort of tie that into the person who comes to mind. When I think of an authentic leader, the first person I think of is our most recent Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson. And I say that because I don't know how many of you watched Justice Jackson's Senate hearings, but for those of you who did, she was treated deplorably during those hearings. And she sat there with grace and with her locks, and she took it and she answered all of the unfair questions with grace. And there was a point, though, where she cried. And as she cried, she discussed her career as a judge and her family and what it was like to miss her daughter's recitals or school programs and to try the best she could as a wife and mother while also doing what she was called to do. And she owned how difficult that was. And that it will continue to be that difficult, and because that's her truth. And so, but at the end of the day, but this is where I belong. I belong here. I belong in this role. I deserve this role. I belong on this bench, the highest court in the land. And this is who you're getting. You're getting the mom, you're getting the wife, you're getting the woman who gets tired sometimes. And that's fine, because this is who I am and this is what I'm bringing, period. And to me, in that setting, particularly in our profession, to take such a strong position in that regard was the epitome of authentic leadership.
That's really strong and powerful. And I think about those hearings and I think of many of us as, the woman, the partner or the wife, the professional, and what that means to, truly be authentic and owning the many pieces of you when you're going forth in leadership and doing it boldly. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's a great example of a powerful woman. So, Sally, throughout your career, I'm certain that you have worked alongside many leaders that have helped shape who you are today. How have those leaders helped you define your leadership philosophy? And then tell us a little bit about that philosophy.
You bet. Well, first of all, I mean that almost brought tears to my eyes, because I think it is so true. We have to claim who we are, and we are wearing many hats. So to me, leadership is lifting others up. It's setting the vision and then giving people the chance to actually make a difference and make their mark. When I think about some of the leaders that have helped me and how they've painted that picture in my life, I think in particular to a woman named Leslie Hartney, who was SVP of Communications at AutoZone, who really took a chance on me. If you know anything about AutoZone, it is certainly an incredible corporation that hires from within. And I was an outsider that came to the industry totally blind, but grew to love it. And she challenged me all the time to be authentic and transparent. And in the civic arena, I was on what we would call the career track within the junior league. And I wanted so badly to be in charge of communications. And a woman named Jenny Mallory Vergas came to my office and said that I was going to be in charge of fund development. And I told her that was not at all what I wanted to do. I wanted to stay in my comfort zone. And she pushed me and she said, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think you could do it. And she convinced me to try something new in a safe volunteer environment where I wouldn't get fired. It is hard to fire a volunteer. And it gave me the gift of fundraising that I would be able to use the rest of my career, both in the corporate setting and in the civic arena. So those are two examples of women who really did for me what I hope to do for others, which is lifting others up and setting a vision and helping them attain it.
That's excellent. So when I think about your leadership philosophy, a lot of what I heard was, having that village, both professionally and in the community, and they help to push you outside of your comfort zone. And that push and that training sets you on a trajectory to do the things that you needed to do, both at work and in the community, and doing it in an authentic way. That's powerful, knowing how important it is to have those folks around you to help propel you to where you're supposed to be. Shalia, let's bring you into the conversation. When we think about leading authentically, there is definitely challenges along the way. Talk to us about your biggest challenge in leadership and how you overcame it.
So how much time do we have? There are a lot of challenges in leadership. One that I can think of right off is just balance. Knowing how to identify what is an emergency and what is not. Everyone's emergency is not yours. Being able to identify what is a priority right now in this season of life and what can I push off for the next season. So balance has been one of the biggest challenges. I am still on this journey. I have not arrived anywhere with my balance. Some days it's really, really good. Some days I don't even know how I made it through, but I make it to the next day. And so balance would be probably my biggest challenge, especially with being involved with so many things that I'm passionate about, things that I love doing. Sometimes it can turn into a weight. And so then I have to look at, what do I really need to be doing right now? What is most important to me? And how is it impacting me mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually? How is it impacting my friends and my family? So just finding that balance, that is a daily challenge.
Now, that's really important what you said. And what I hear is, within that balance, the way to find it is really identifying what's the impact to time, to help you really figure out how you can approach balance, and especially when you're managing multiple things. We talked about Justice Brown and the different things that she's doing around being the wife, the mother, and Sally talked about, both doing things in the community and balancing what that looks like at work. And a lot of it has to do with measuring impact. And what I found is also managing a strong no. I had a conversation recently where I was really thinking through and talking out how to say no and say no more often, because that is often the challenge of women, especially leaders, and being pulled to be that authentic leader, because part of that authenticity is leading with passion as well. So no, that's really good. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. So now that we have explored authenticity and the leaders that have embraced this in front of you, let's talk about how you have put this into practice and what you've learned along the way. I like to call that leadership in action. Sally, as a leader, how important is communication when you talk about putting all of this in action?
Well, I'll just say, if you fail at communication, you failed at whatever your mission is or what you were wanting to accomplish. It is crucial in leadership. Now, our team, we use a tool called Culture Index, and it helps you understand how people are hardwired to receive information. I think sometimes we as leaders forget that it's really important to put yourself in another person's shoes. In Culture Index, they call it the platinum rule. And it is not to do things the way you want them done, but the way that somebody else wants them done. And if you don't have a resource like that, I want to give you that, because, obviously we all are at different stages. I want to give you 3 things that really matter to think about when you're communicating. And that is reach, repetition, and relevancy. Reach. Are you reaching the people that you want to reach? That may sound really almost stupid, but what I mean by that is, when as leaders, you will have a chance to interact with people in all walks across all different stages in life. And it's really important that you get feedback from them. And so when you are, however you choose to communicate, email, phone, person to person, to always ask for that feedback. And that's how you'll know if you're reaching them. Then the next is repetition. In marketing, it's called the rule of 7. And it's a very interesting study. Now, Instagram and social media has changed that metric a little bit, but by and large, people have to hear something new or see something new 7 times for it to start to break into their memory before they even make a decision. So as leaders, if we're calling our teams to something new and different, one and done, one and done does not cut it. And then the last is relevancy. It is so important to know your audience. And the best way to do that is, again, to ask. People love being asked their opinions. And so finding a couple of key team members to bounce something, and you don't have to be a leader to do that. If you're delivering a message of any kind, having a sounding board that you talked about earlier to take the temperature and ask if the topic even matters to the recipient before you launch into a big presentation.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. You know, I love how you said failing at communication is ultimately failing at the goal at hand, because in order to reach it, and you have a team that you're leading, it's important for you to make sure that everyone knows the goal and how to get to it. And reach, repetition, and relevance. I love how you talked about the rule of 7, because the importance of it is, if you're leading a team and leading them in an authentic way, it's important for them to understand the goal. And you have to often repeat it multiple times. And, you know, as a leader, you often think that, you know, if you're working with adults, I should be able to say it once and that's it. Well, that's not the reality. And you have to think about, you know, how often do you have to make sure that you're on top of your game, using all the calendars, using the notes, using the notification, all of these things to help keep you balancing the multiple things that we do every day. I love that rule of 7. Thanks so much for sharing that. So, Tanera, we're talking about communication and bringing everyone in. And part of being able to do that effectively is thinking through vision, strategy, confidence when leading. Why are these 3 things important, and how do you activate them?
So it's important because you're the leader, right? And by that, I mean, you're the leader and you have to establish yourself as the leader, not someone who's holding a space, not someone who's just put in a role, not someone who just chose to do something, that you are actually a leader and you're there to accomplish whatever it is you've been, assigned to accomplish. So you're not looking to be led. You're not just there in name only. And so you have to own that. And to own that, you have to set goals. But before you set the goals, how do you get there? What's the overarching vision for whatever it is, or whatever your role and whatever your goals are? What's the vision? What's the end game? I'd read a study about, training adults who have ADHD, for instance. And the best approach is to visualize the end and then figure out how you get there. Understand that you can make it to this point, make it to your goal. And so for you to have, to set a goal, have a clear vision, and you need to be able to articulate that vision. In articulating the vision, you have to set a strategy. So it can't be sort of a high level dream, which sounds great in theory, but is not achievable. This is my vision. This is where we're going to get to. This is how we're going to get there. And then we have to execute. So it can not stay high level. It needs to be very regimented, and it needs to be very clear. And I say it needs to be very regimented and very clear because, ultimately, if it's not, and you find yourself flailing and grasping for a vision or grasping for a strategy, you won't receive buy-in. People may not take you seriously, because if you don't know what you want to do or how you're going to do it, why would they listen to you? And you have to not only execute it and be, strategic about it, but you have to know that it's what you're going to do. You have to be married to it and invested to it, committed to it. So you have to walk into that space confidently, because you're asking people to follow you. And I say asking because, if you're at work, they're kind of compelled, but just because you're in a role doesn't mean they're really going to follow you, right? You have to give them something to follow. And so, however, whatever it takes to get you to that place, whether it's, meditating or saying affirmations or praying or reading books or listening to a motivational speaker, whatever works for you, you have to find a mechanism to get to that space and know that you belong there. This is your thing. This is what we're doing, and that's okay. And everyone may not be okay with that, and you have to be okay with that too. But if you have the structure in place, if your project or whatever your vision is has good bones, as they say, then it'll be way harder for someone to question your abilities or your capabilities or your qualifications. Otherwise, you might find someone looking to take your spot. And so those things I think are very important.
That's awesome. And one of the things that I heard throughout that was owning it. And the way that you own it is first to know that you're supposed to be there, which we'll talk about in a minute, and how you're articulating the strategy and laying it out and making sure that the team understands, or the folks that you're working with, whether it's community or at work, understand where they're headed and that you are the one that's leading them out front. I love how you said, give them something to follow, which means that you have to have that vision and that strategy in place so that the goal at the end of the day can be met. And you're leading by that example by giving the team exactly what the strategy is to go forth. So Shalia, let's bring you into this conversation when we think about owning it. Leading with vision, setting strategy, showing up with confidence, and communicating effectively all make up a great leader. But oftentimes, women face moments of uncertainty. Over the past couple of years, I have heard individuals, particularly women in senior leadership, discuss imposter syndrome. Let's talk about it. In fact, today, let's talk about how to overcome it. Shalia, how do you feel about imposter syndrome? And what advice do you have for our viewers today?
So I've heard that term several times over the past few years, and I never bought into it. I never really believed it. Actually, I had to look up and figure out exactly what it is. And once I found the definition, that didn't align with who I am as a person, the way that I was raised. I have been in several spaces, several rooms, several positions where I am the youngest. I am the only woman. I am the only person of color, period, in the room. And I have never felt like I did not belong there. If I am in a space, God put me there for a reason. And I know that he would not give me a position or an opportunity without giving me provision or the tools that I need to be there and to be there in excellence. And so I've never really felt that I didn't belong anywhere or I wasn't equipped enough. I just lean on my faith. I lean on what I know is true, what I'm grounded in. If I am in a room, if I'm sitting at a table, I belong there. And I have to have that perspective or that attitude, or people will walk over you, or people will know that she is the youngest person in the room, or people will say, I don't know if I can follow her. Like Tanera said, give people something to follow. And if you walk into a room and you sit at a table with that level of confidence, not arrogance, but confidence with humility, but awareness of who you are, where you are, why you're there, what you bring to the table, success will always follow.
That's powerful. So ladies, you've heard it. And even to the gentlemen that have joined in with us who are fanning the flame of some fantastic women. What I am challenging you to do today is drop imposter syndrome. Because if you're going to own it and walk into the space, you can't be someone that is imposing or breaking in because the space was made for you. Will you have those moments of uncertainty where you're trying to figure it out? Yes, because you're human. But don't let anybody ever feel like you have broken in. What you did break the ceiling, but you broke the ceiling because it was meant for you to enter the space. So own it with humility, own it with awareness, and know that the provision has been made and the tools are already in you. And the only thing you have to do is continue to sharpen it, and it will help you to be a true, authentic leader and lean into who you really are in this season. Thank you, ladies. So let's talk a little bit about when that leader is, really staring at the woman in the mirror. Becoming an authentic leader takes audacity. You have to dare to be you. This season of life that we are in, this post-pandemic environment, the changes in society that we're facing, the changes that we need to see, all of this requires leaders that are willing to break out of some boxes. To some, that can be scary because it means listening to feedback, speaking up and out, and growing. Let's jump into that. Sally, this is for you. In leadership, we have to be able to offer real feedback to our peers, leaders, direct, indirect reports. Giving and receiving true feedback abides in authenticity and helps us to activate that next level of leadership. Why is feedback important, Sally? And what advice can you share with our viewers about giving feedback up, meaning leadership, down, meaning those that report up to you, and across, thinking about how to give feedback to peers?
Well, so I'm gonna kind of piggyback on what Shalia, with the most perfect skin I've ever seen, has said, and that is, really, I think what you were hinting at is that there is not a single person at any table that we will ever sit at, unless it is the Lord Himself, who is perfect. We all come with flaws of some kind. We will fail and we will succeed. And so when I think about what the most important factor is in feedback, I really think that it's the spirit in which it is delivered. Now, so what do I mean by that? I'm going to address the leadership leading down, or not leading down, talking to your direct reports, giving feedback down the chain of command. And most of us work with people that want to do their best. And it's okay to tell a direct report that they've done something wrong. But what matters is letting them know that you're doing it to help them be better. That you believe in them and that you see their potential, that you want to, ways that I often phrase is that you want to push them. And the way to do it is by improving X or really concentrating more on Y. But letting them know that the reason you're even delivering this message is because you want to push them to be better, and you know that they can. Of course, it's, I think, far more difficult to provide feedback up the chain, and it can often, it can be, especially if you're not someone that is as boldly outspoken as I am, it can be uncomfortable. And so I've found that the best way to do that is to invite whomever it is you're delivering the message to into the conversation, using outreach that says, and I'm in a corporate setting, in a volunteer setting, it doesn't really matter. I notice that we are doing this thing this way, and I'd love to share a few ideas around how I've noticed we can improve it. Would you be open to a conversation or an outline on some areas that might drive revenue, drive participation, drive engagement, drive customer satisfaction, whatever that might be? But the key there is that you, especially if it's in a business setting, you need to know the objectives of the company. Where is the leadership team trying to take you? And how can you add your voice, as it has been said, to that destination or to that journey?
No, that's excellent. And one of the things that really stuck out in all of these areas, whether it's up, down, or across, at the end of the day, is the spirit in which the conversation is happening and how it's given. And in all of the ways, it's really to help someone be better, because we are not perfect. And, understanding the who, what, when, where, the how, the why, and all of what we're doing in that feedback allows to bring everybody together. And doing so courageously will help to move any organization forward. So thank you so much for sharing that, Sally. Shalia, what are your thoughts on empowering women to feel confident to speak up? Sally just gave us some steps, but she also hinted at that it's uncomfortable. So what are some feedback that you can give us about how to confidently speak up in the workplace, especially if you're in a male-dominated industry?
I think the first thing you need to do is make sure you have all your ducks in a row. Make sure you have all of your information, all of your facts. You want to speak with wisdom. You want to speak with intelligence. And when you have your facts, that gives you another layer of confidence. And when you do speak with assertiveness, speak with boldness. Despite what people might think, how you might come off, do it anyway. It's going to be uncomfortable. A lot of things that we have to do as leaders are uncomfortable. It's completely out of our comfort zones. But if we don't do it, who else will? And so it's often left to us to take the charge to lead. And so speak up and just do it and make sure you do it right.
Absolutely. Leadership can be uncomfortable. If you go forth with the facts, having the ducks in the row, speak with assertiveness, then you're giving yourself the ability to speak up and speak out in the workplace. Here's something else, ladies. It's also okay to practice. Really going into a space, assessing the room, understanding, again, going back to what the ladies have shared, understanding what the goals are, what the strategy is, how you're moving forward, and sit down and create the plan of even what it is that you want to speak up and out about, so that you are able to come forth and do so boldly. It's, everyone doesn't have the gift of gab where they can talk off the top of their head, and it's okay. Some people have to be, very tactical in what that message is going to be, and it's completely perfect and okay to be able to write it out so that when you walk into that space, you feel more together and in control of what you're sharing. And again, it's going back to what Shalia said about having those facts and those ducks in a row as you prepare to speak. Thank you so much. Tanera is going to round us out before we jump into our Q&A. Throughout your career in both the community and in the legal profession, you have encountered some growing pains and gains. Share with us a moment in time that helped make you the leader that you are today.
I think it's like Shalia said, how much time do we have? But I'll start with one that stands out, and I kind of tell the story a lot, but it was really a pivotal moment in my career. I want to say I was maybe, I don't know, fourth or fifth year lawyer, so still relatively young in practice. And I'm a trial lawyer, and so I was getting ready for trial with one of the partners then. I wasn't a partner yet, and we were representing a family, and the primary client was a 78-year-old white woman, and I walk in the room, and she calls me colored, and I was horrified by that. I can't tell you the effect it had on me in that moment, because I could, I'd experienced things, growing up, being born in the 70s, but I never had anyone say something so direct and so offensive to my face in a very casual way. So the person I worked for, obviously stepped in and told her, we wouldn't, speak that way. But I, went to my parents' house, and I was outraged, and I went in fight or flight, and I was so mad, and I don't want to be here, and I'm just not going to do it, and I can't represent her. And, these things. My parents looked at me and they giggled, and couldn't figure out what they were giggling about, because it wasn't funny to me. But at that moment, I recognized that they came up in a very different time than I had. And their response, my mom said, oh, well, she just thought she was being nice to you, calling you colored. She thought she was doing the right thing, being, cordial, calling you colored, because she was 78 years old, and this was a long time ago. And so in that moment, and looking at their response to it and my response to it, and thinking about the differences in what they'd experienced and what I'd experienced, and the differences in what the client had experienced in the world they grew up in, it really helped me understand how to stop and take a step back and recognize that a lot of times the things that people do or the things that people say are based on their perspective. And though it's not yours, and though it may not be what you think is right, it helped me understand nuances and to learn how to meet people where they are, learn how to have tough discussions, and not always take everything at face value. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it was okay, but from her perspective, it was. And it just really taught me a lot about people generally and engaging with people generally going forward. I don't know if that had happened. I don't know that I would have been able to do that now.
Thank you so much for sharing that very real story. And when I think about that, When we talk about, again, leading with authenticity, a lot of that, especially today, is really thinking through and working through in partnership how to overcome unconscious bias, because that's what that is. When you're having and saying things that an individual may not really understand, may be offensive. And, you know, like with your mother, she said she didn't realize that she was being offensive because of the time that she grew up in, but it didn't make it right. And as a leader, and again, thank you so much for sharing that. That is a pivotal moment that many can, you know, walk into, not necessarily saying that someone may have called you colored, but someone could, you know, touch your hair and say, is that your hair? How long did it take to braid it? You know, and there are so many different things that come out when we talk about these unconscious bias. We're saying these things that can be offensive, but being bold enough in the authentic leadership to think through, how do you change that? How do you bring together those courageous conversations so that people can move forward and overcome it? Thank you for talking about those nuances and really how to talk about those tough discussions. So to our audience, we are ready to have a quick Q&A. Let's go ahead and see what we had in the chat. And again, if there's anybody in particular that you have a question for, please put their names next to it. Ladies, thank you thus far. All right. So let's see. We have a question. Was the road harder to success than you thought it would be? Was the road harder to success than you thought that it would be? Who wants to take that? I know any one of you could. It wasn't addressed to anyone in particular. Sally or Tanira or Shalene?
I'll say, you know, what is success? That to me is, when I think about the word success, that's kind of a destination. And I feel like I'm very much still on the journey as I am approaching a few years out from 50. And there's still so much that I want to do. And so is it challenging? Yes. But is it harder than I thought it would be? No. Now, I also have a mother who is a school teacher that made no bones about, as I was entering different industries, how difficult things might be, and really helped set me up for having a passion for wanting more and wanting to do more. But I think, you know, we all, again, no matter what walk we have or where we want to go, you have to expect roadblocks. And when you expect them, you can overcome them. So it's my 2 cents.
Oh, that's awesome. Success is a destination, but I choose to be on a journey. And along the journey, we have to expect roadblocks. So when you think about that from that perspective, to the person that asked that question, you don't see it as the road hard, but the road that's traveled and necessary to get to where you're going. Thank you so much, Sally. Any other burning questions out there? Do you think being a woman makes it more difficult to be your authentic self? Shalia, let's let you tackle that one, Miss Down to the Imposter Syndrome.
My immediate answer is no. I think it's more fun being a woman to be authentic, because I feel like we have more space to be creative. We have more space to do what we want to do with no apologies. I think it's fun to be your authentic self, to be a woman. I don't see that as a barrier whatsoever. I take it as a privilege, and I will live in that privilege.
Excellent. More space to be creative, taking it as a privilege. So it's not hard to be your authentic self. because the self that's you is beautifully, fearfully, and wonderfully made. Oh, the questions are coming in. All right. So, Tanira, let's throw this one at you. What is your greatest accomplishment?
Oh, not to sound cliche, but my children are my greatest accomplishment. Everything that I do, I'm always thinking about, well, what do they think? Will they be proud of me? Will they do, And so while I've won a lot of awards and I've gotten a lot of accolades, as long as they're good with, if they're happy, if I'm making them proud, that genuinely is what matters most to me. Professional accomplishment, I'd say, I'm the first to be the Black woman partner at my firm in 100 plus years, and the first Black woman to be president of the Bar Association in 140 plus years. And so while they're great accomplishments, they also kind of make me sad that it took that long. And so it's sort of, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But if I had to assign, a professional accomplishment, I think it would be those two things.
Awesome. Legacy. The legacy of children is a fantastic accomplishment. Whether it's a child that you brought into this world, whether you're the fantastic aunt or godmother, the legacy of children, what you're able to pour in is always a great accomplishment of how you keep moving that baton forward. And then being a woman of first. And we've seen a lot of that over the past few years. And I'm happy to know that we can continue to go that route and continue into shattering those ceilings in our stiletto heels, is what I like to say, and really showing how we are crushing it. So listen, we have a few more moments before we are closing out. So let's see, we have one more quick question, and then we're going to transition. So the question is, name a woman that has influenced you the most in your career and why. I know Tanira talked about Justice Brown. Is there any other women that come immediately to mind, or Justice Brown Jackson, excuse me, that you would like to be able to share about today?
I would say there's Judge locally, Bernice Donald. She has been the first of everything. She has blazed more trails than I can count. And oftentimes in this particular type of profession where lawyers are supposed to look and be a certain way and you're trying to be something different, it's very difficult and isolating. And so, but in meeting with her and engaging with her and hearing about the things that she has, overcome and been through and been so successful and humble in spite of, I'd say I always leave lunch with her or whatever the case may be, feeling understood. And so the way she's persevered in the face of far worse things than I have has truly been inspirational for me and highly influential for me.
Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so as we prepare to close out this session, I will ask each one of you to share a 60-second final word concerning authentic leadership for our viewers. Sally, let's start with you.
All right. Well, so to me, authentic leadership is all about transparency. We're all looking to make our mark. And when we share with others how we can best contribute, we open the door for ourselves to do amazing things. So being authentic and transparent go hand in hand.
Excellent. Shalia?
I would say focus on the inner work. Whatever is in you will flow out of you. And so focus on being a good person at your core. Focus on being a servant leader at your core. Focus on being humble, compassionate, assertive, bold, all of those things. Focus on the inner work because it's going to flow out onto the people around you.
Excellent. And Tanira, round us out.
I would say, you're exactly who you're supposed to be, and who you are is enough. You're good. So bring that you with you into everything you do. And while you're doing that, never second guess whether you're the right person to be at the table that's been prepared for you. You're good. And just say that to yourself over and over again and mean it. And I think you'll get there.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, ladies. Sally, Shalia, and Tanira, you did a phenomenal job. So many nuggets to glean from. To our viewers today, there is one quote that I want to leave with you. Authenticity is about being true to who you are, even when everyone around you wants you to be someone else. Let that sink in. Listen, you can't walk in your purpose and align with your destiny if you don't tap into who you are, embrace who you are, even the parts that make you perfectly imperfect. It's your special sauce. The world needs your talent. The world needs your solutions. And if you move forward as someone other than yourself, the world will never have the opportunity to receive the gift that is you. So go forth and lead with authenticity. Thank you so much.
Knocked out of park again, ladies. Thank you so much for all those tidbits on how to be an authentic leader. You all are shining examples of all of that. And thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you again. I am learning so much from today's panelists, and I really appreciate being here today. So how are you feeling, audience? I've been following you in the comments. I'm going to start calling the comments section the amen section, because I haven't seen so many amens, a few yes, I love it. Thank you so much. So it's truly inspirational to fuel your soul like nothing else can. So keep dropping those comments in the section right now. Thank you to Sherry. Sherry posted, vision is key in leadership. You are absolutely right, Sherry. Vision is key in leadership. Nakia, balance is a challenge. I love that those panelists took some time to say, look, we're not perfect leaders, right? We are not trying to be here. We have challenges and trying to find that balance. And that's the beautiful thing about the Women's Foundation. I'm sure that was a big part. There are some things that comes with being a woman, and having balance is important. Ms. Jones, I agree. Amazing session. And these words of wisdom from these ladies have been so rejuvenating to my spirit. Me too. Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you. Very inspiring. And thank you for your wholeness. Paula Jones, wish you on that one. Thank you for all that you do. All right, now it's time to move on. It's time for another Hilton Hollis scarf giveaway. This next question is to win a 2021 signature scarf. Yet another beautiful design. I know some of you guys saw it earlier. You picked out your outfits. You know exactly when you want to wear it, but you gotta win it first. I'm gonna give you a chance. So, trivia time. The first person to answer this correctly will win that scarf. Okay? Hands on keyboard. You got to listen in the comment section as soon as you know the answer. The first one and the whole staff, they're watching to make sure they find out who says it first. We love our leadership symposiums, and I hope you've been enjoying it too. What was the name of last year's annual tribute luncheon keynote speaker? Go. What was the name of last year's annual tribute luncheon keynote speaker? I'm checking. Okay. Staff, are you checking too? Who we got in the chat? We got any? I don't see any answers yet. You guys think about it. Who was this person? Give you a hint. Oh, that was quick. I think we have the right answer. Congratulations, Amelia Rose Earhart. Yes, that was our last year's tribute speaker. Thank you so much. I know our staff, a member of the foundation staff, will follow up with you to make sure you receive your scarf. Yeah, I've seen those answers coming in right now. She sure was. Our final session, lessons in being limitless. Wow. Lessons in being limitless. That's what's next. Panelists will focus on the skills and beliefs that will keep you becoming a more self-inspired leader. You'll learn how to break through thoughts that hold you back and get excited and empowered to take your next steps. Dr. Elizabeth Gillespie will lead our final session. She joined the faculty at the University of Memphis as an assistant professor in the Department of Public and Nonprofit Administration in 2020 and is affiliate faculty with the Institute for Philanthropy and Nonprofit Leadership. She earned her doctorate in public administration from the University of Nebraska at Omaha, her master's from Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, and her bachelor's from the University of Iowa. Dr. Gillespie's research focuses on nonprofits, philanthropy, and social change. Prior to her academic career, Elizabeth spent a decade working in the nonprofit field, primarily working with adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities in Des Moines, Iowa. We are ready for a real treat. You ready? I know I am. Ladies, let's take it away for our final session. Hey, Beth.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, and welcome everyone to our third session, Lessons in Being Limitless. We're so happy to have you here and our great panelists. I'm sure they will pop up any moment now. And there we go. There's Linda McNeil. Thank you for joining us. So my name is Dr. Elizabeth Gillespie. Happy to be here. A few housekeeping items before we jump in. So the format of today's session will be a panel discussion. Last 10-15 minutes will be Q&A. And our panelists and I will be on camera, no one else, to ask a question at any time, especially if your question is for a panelist in particular. Please type that in the chat, which will be monitored throughout the session. So thank you again to our panelists for being here. Let me give you some bios on each of our amazing panelists. So we have Nika Martin is the Director of Culture and Inclusion for Monogram Foods, where she is responsible for driving the company's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, or DE&I, roadmap, as well as employee feedback and culture-focused programming. Prior to joining Monogram, she held roles in the areas of government affairs, corporate social responsibility, external communications, and DE&I. A leader whose background includes politics, education, government, and corporate environments, Nika remains focused on creating policies and systems that foster inclusion and support underrepresented communities. She's a graduate of Louisiana State University and Hampton University and holds a certificate in diversity and inclusion for human resources from Cornell. She has served on boards including Family Safety Center of Memphis and Shelby County, Dress for Success, and the Tennessee Advisory Board to the United States Commission on Civil Rights. Nika is an alum of Leadership Memphis and New Memphis Institute and resides in Shelby County, Tennessee with her husband and son. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
Great. And next we have Linda McNeil, a lifelong Memphian. Linda began her professional fundraising career at Lemoyne-Owen College, Office of Alumni Affairs and Institutional Advancement, where she spent 7 years. Over her 25 plus years in the nonprofit industry, Linda has served as the chief fundraiser for some of the city's most noteworthy nonprofits. She's currently works as a nonprofit consultant for Gaskill Strategy, a firm that provides fundraising, communications, and strategic planning counsel for nonprofits. Their clients include Collage Dance Collective, Code Crew, Girls Inc. of Memphis, Mid-South Food Bank, Memphis Botanic Gardens, Binghamton Christian Academy, Ballet Memphis, and Memphis Brooks Museum of Art. She has made her mark on the nonprofit fundraising community at large, and in 2011 received the Association of Fundraising Professionals Crystal Award for Fundraising Executive of the Year. In 2021, Linda was honored with one of Memphis Grizzlies' 2021 HBCU Empowerment Awards for her positive contributions and impact in the Memphis community. And she was named one of Memphis's Business Journal's Super Women in Business in 2022. So she recently published a book. Please check it out. It's a book of short stories, The Nonprofits Adventures of Amber Reed, inspired by her work in the fundraising profession. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
And then last but certainly not least, we have Stephanie Simpson. She is Vice President, Chief Administrative Officer at New South Capital Management Incorporated. Prior to joining New South, she worked at Sedgwick for over 11 years. She received both her Bachelor's of Arts and her Juris Doctorate from the University of Memphis. Stephanie has deep roots in the Memphis community. She has been a member of the Junior League of Memphis for over 20 years, serving as president in 2013 and 2014. She is a former member of the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis Board of Directors and Porter Lease Books from Birth Advisory Council. Stephanie was on Mayor Strickland's transition team as a leader of the Poverty Committee. Since her breast cancer diagnosis in 2016, Stephanie has been passionate about connecting others who are fighting the disease. Additionally, she has been involved with raising money and awareness for cancer research and support services. Thank you for those efforts. She was the chair for West Fight On in 2017 and 2018, and is currently the vice president of the West Cancer Foundation Board of Directors. Stephanie's latest endeavor is 901 Petals of Purpose, a nonprofit she founded in 2019, whose mission is to spread joy and inspire kindness in our community through the repurposing of flowers and the sharing of personal experiences. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Any thoughts before we jump in, or are we ready for questions? Everybody's
Let's get going.
Here we go. And we'll open this up to anyone who wants to kick us off. What do you feel has been some of the most important advice you've received that you may or may not have taken? And how has that advice helped you to get to where you are today?
I'm happy to take that one, Beth. In my profession, the best advice I've received is the answer is always no if you don't ask. And that relates to asking for a gift, for a nonprofit, asking for whatever it is you're wanting to do in your business. So that has been some really good advice. And then we've all heard the scripture, to whom much is given, much will be required. So giving back is some really great advice I've received as well.
Nika.
I'll chime in. I'll say some of the best advice I've gotten is from actually my dad, and he's probably in heaven saying, hey, I got a shout out. He loved a good shout out. But some of the best advice he gave me is that in life, we've been dealt a hand, and you have a choice. You can play the hand you've been given or throw it in, but someone else could take your same hand and win. So in essence, he was just saying, really just don't give up, because even when situations may seem like they're dire or it's something that you can't overcome, there's always a lesson in that. And I know all of us here who are in the chat or even here on the panel have been through some really tough scenarios, right? Just listen to Stephanie and her testimony about overcoming cancer, that when you look at yourself on the other side of it, right, you see how you've grown, and not just you growing, but also how you've been able to impact those around you. So playing that hand and not throwing it in.
Great advice. Well, I'll chime in as well. This was sort of a mantra that my grandmother would share with my dad, that he would sort of pass along with me, maybe, and I think now we live in this culture that idolizes busyness, and I know we all are busy, but she would say, you make time for what's important. And so I have really reflected on that and really thought about what that means. Like, if I'm busy, but what am I busy doing? And what do my days reflect? Do my days reflect my values? As I think about what is important to me, what do I want to be doing? How do I create a life that makes sure that my days are reflecting what's important to me? So you make time for what's important. So if I'm always allowing things that I don't think are as important as my priorities suck up my time, what do I need to do to change my days and be intentional about making those? Sometimes they're small adjustments, and sometimes they may involve a big life change. But again, make time for what's important.
Thank you for that. So we're here today to talk about how women can cultivate the courage to create big things in the world. And you guys are shining examples of that. And so really what we hope to learn from you, what are some of the key steps you've taken to advance your career?
I'll start. I took some risks earlier in my career, some that probably I couldn't take now at this juncture in my life, but really stepping out on faith when I knew there was an opportunity there, and I had a knowing in my knower, right, that it was the right step for me to take, even though it may have felt like I was taking a couple of steps backwards to actually get to that place. Having the courage and also being able to just align with that faith and take that next step. It was tough. Not saying it's not tough, but on the other side of it, you look at those steps and you say, okay, if I hadn't made that one choice, if I hadn't stepped out on faith, this may not have happened. So taking those risks, calculated risks based on where you are right now in your season. Also being really intentional about learning, keeping that curiosity, always wanting to learn more and grow more. And then something that was really impactful for me is that I engaged an executive coach. I was at a point where I was really trying to figure out and get a little bit more clarity around, what's purpose for me. I was a little bit confused, honestly. So having an opportunity to work, and I engaged with a local coach named Jen Frank, and she really helped me understand and clarify some of those questions I was having, and understanding really what I needed and was looking for in a role. Because I didn't just want to go out there and just do something. I wanted to do something that was really connected to purpose. So it helped me connect deeper with my purpose, which informed the next steps of my career and just life in general.
Great. Linda, any thoughts to add?
All I can say is ditto, ditto, ditto. I was going to say some of the same things. The only thing I would also add is, and you talk about professional development and investing in yourself, but also just be always open to learning. We can learn. You can learn from anyone. So always be open to learning and keep your ears and eyes open for those opportunities. As Nika said, be calculated and thoughtful about the next steps that you make in your career. And invest in yourself, professional development, executive coach, whatever it is that you feel you need, make sure that you're investing in yourself. If your company doesn't offer those kind of professional development, find ways to find it out yourself. There's so many free opportunities in this community. So I would just take care of you and make sure you're doing what you need to grow.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Stephanie, let's have you take on the next question. Really, this is a great question for all of you. You all sort of lead in success, and I know success is defined differently for each individual person, but knowing where you are in your careers today, did you see yourself at this point in your life when you were younger?
It's a great question. And, I've reflected on this over the last couple of weeks as I was thinking about this session. And I have to say, it's sort of sad to think that as I was younger, I don't think I ever really thought much about where I would be. I've sort of seized the day and taken advantage of opportunities, but not really had that roadmap of where I wanted to be, how I think success would be defined in my life. So no. But what I would add, it's also made me think, and this is a challenge for me and for everyone who's participating today, is because I've thought about the industries that I've been involved and that I've worked in, since being in school, and I moved and worked at a claims management company. No idea until I took the job that there were careers in claims management, and thoroughly enjoyed the work that I've done. And now, I work for an investment firm. No idea that this type of industry even existed. And so I've thought a lot about, STEM, and how over the last couple of decades, we've seen an emphasis, especially for women, entering, giving exposure to younger girls about careers that they might, be interested in the STEM arena. And we've seen improvements. We've seen more women in those careers and taking leadership positions. So I think it's challenged me to think more about how I can provide exposure to young women, my nieces, my friends' kids, and talking about career opportunities that are outside the things you always hear about, a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher, the things that you've heard or what you've known. So you only know what you know. And again, someone may not think that's for her or him, but also thinking, wow, I didn't even know that existed. So the short answer is no, I would have never thought that I would be working in an investment firm, but wow, it's been a wild ride getting here, and I've enjoyed it. I've had, roadblocks along the way, but actually I've seen those as part of the journey that have really got me to this point, and I'm grateful for it.
Wonderful. Nika, any thoughts to add about where you were in your youth and where you are today?
Well, I yes and no for me. I saw myself, surrounded by family, great friends, and community. I saw that for myself. Now, professionally, I did not. I have to tell y'all, when I was an 18-year-old, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed Nika Jackson at that time, on the campus of LSU, also the home of the Lady Tigers championship basketball team. I went in as an international trade and finance major with a minor in Japanese. what? I think I just put the course catalog on the wall and played a rousing game of like pin the tail on the major, because I don't know where I got that from. I think I kind of got it from like actually a season of A Different World, when Dwayne Wayne, I don't know any Different World folks out there in the chat, when he went away to Japan and studied for a little while. But nonetheless, I made a big pivot and started my career in education, working with children with disabilities and also with the focus on cultural differences. And from there, I went to politics and then to government, then focused on outreach related to disparities, racial disparities in birth outcomes. And then I went to the corporate sector. Well, I actually went to government then and did multicultural, religious, and culture and community affairs. And then I went to DEI in the corporate sector. So I've kind of been a lot of different places in a lot of different roles. But I will say the common thread with all of those roles is they've all been people focused, right? And each role stretched me in a unique way and prepared me for the next step. So yes and no, the community piece, the family piece, personally, yes, but career-wise, made a lot of twists and turns, but I wouldn't change one thing about it.
Excellent response. And Linda, how about you? Let's round this question out with your thoughts.
Oh, of course not. I had, and as Stephanie brought up, I had no idea this profession even existed. Going out asking people for money. Yeah. So, I mean, I found my career on the campus of Lemoyne College, fell in love with it. It's all about relationships. It's all about, that's who I am. Relationships are so important to me, personal and professional. So, no, I wanted to be a teacher, I thought. And now I'm actually teaching in a way. I mean, working with the clients that we work with, it's actually a teaching role. We're helping them understand how to go out and ask for money. What's the best way to do? Who are the right people to support your mission? So I guess I'm teaching in a way, but no, I had no idea that I would be doing this work.
You are certainly teaching. As someone who studies nonprofits, I know it's so difficult for developmental staff to reach those echelons and really help nonprofits. So we appreciate what you're doing. Memphis has a huge nonprofit sector, so they only benefit from expertise like yours. So we appreciate it. So this next question is kind of interesting. So I've always joked that I failed my way forward my whole career, right? But that I would bet on myself any day of the week, right? So that's my mantra. My question for you is, what are your professional mantras, if any?
I'll start. Yeah, I kind of keep this staple quote with me, and it's from Nelson Mandela, and it says, "There's no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life less than the one you're capable of living." So another contemporary poet put it differently, and he said, "Turn down for what?" Right? So it's one that, I must remind myself of this one. Honestly, I do that often, and I often have to even redefine what that means to live that out loud, right? We talked a little bit already about seasons, right? Where there have been times in my life, and I know some of you can also, feel the same ways, that I've been all work, doing all the things. I've been on 5 and 6 boards at the same time, just out everywhere, just really hitting it hard. And then you come into a season where life starts lifing, and anybody know about that? Drop it in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. And it becomes just about work and home only. And those two things alone are more than enough to fill up your plate. But I've learned that while these seasons are different, I can still live a full, passionate life in both situations, right? It may look different, but I can still find joy. I can still find purpose, whether it's sitting with the mayor or if it's at the bedside of a loved one as a caregiver, right? So it's a choice that we have to make to do it big, lead in big ways, serve in big ways, love in big ways, but whatever you do, just don't settle.
Love that. Yep. Stephanie, how about you?
Gosh, that's so inspiring. And just thinking about what you're saying is really a lot of times the small things really are the big things, right? Doing what you're saying and following your purpose and caring for those around you, if that's the season of life that you're in. Well, I don't think this is the most professional quote or mantra, but I'm going to share it anyway. And it's really thinking about, when you have passion, you feel very strong in your conviction about something, I have to check myself and say, is this a hill I want to die on? And so even if it's something that I feel really strongly about, which oftentimes results in emotion, anybody else, when you feel really passionate about it, but sometimes I need to take a step back and a check and say, all right, is this something? Now, certainly if it's ethically or legal, yes, there are certain parameters around that, but oftentimes in the heat of a conflict or something where maybe I'm seeing a different perspective, where do I draw the line and saying, all right, we just have to reach a compromise here. And even if this is not the ultimate solution, or maybe if it's not moving as quickly as I want it to move, or whatever it may be, this is the time that I need to reserve that passion, for another day. So is it a hill I want to die on? Not very many.
Not very many. Yep, that's excellent. And then I keep wrapping up with Linda on these questions, but you have to words. Go ahead and share.
I've got a couple I like to share. I strongly believe in the scripture, Jeremiah 29:11. What's for me is for me. And so I don't stress over things that don't happen the way I think they should have happened, because it was for me, it was for me. And then we have tomorrow's for a reason. So if you don't get it done today, start over tomorrow. We have tomorrow's for a reason, and just be thankful for that tomorrow and start back over again.
Mm-hmm. Excellent advice. Yeah. So considering your careers and some of the different paths you've taken in your career and professional journeys, what do you think are some important steps that women can take in any industry, really, to advance their careers? I think oftentimes we don't get to hear from women what success looks like to them and what that journey has been like for them. So please feel free to share your journey and any thoughts you have on advancing your career if that's what you're looking to do.
I think we talked a little bit about this, but I was just thinking, to piggyback on a couple of questions ago, just seeking out mentors, not being afraid to seek out mentors who will give you transparent and honest feedback. We all have our blind spots, and we want to be aware of what those are, and finding people who will invest in you, not necessarily not your manager or your supervisor at the time, but maybe someone else in your organization, or it can be somebody outside of your workplace. It could be someone that you trust, or somebody that you would just like to be a mentor, who can sometimes ask you the hard questions that you need to be asked to make sure that you're challenging yourself and you're seeing things objectively, and to give you ideas of things that maybe you could do the same way, keep on that path, or maybe trying something else. So looking for those mentors to guide you who've been there before you.
Mm-hmm. Great. Linda, anything from you?
I think we talked about this earlier too. Invest in yourself, professional development. Mm-hmm. The job that you want, make sure you're position yourself to be able to get that job, or explore the opportunity to get that job. So invest in yourself, professional development, the mentors, as Stephanie said. Just be open and be open to opportunities. Keep your eyes open. Opportunities are out there. I mean, like you said, I failed my way up too. And it's because those opportunities were there, and I was like, okay, here I am, I'm ready.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then Nika, considering you've been in government, you've been in all these industries, what is your premier signature advice for someone looking to advance?
I have a little bit of a different take, right? I would say look to advance your purpose instead of career. I think in doing that, just really connecting to, what makes you feel like you're really connected, and what makes your heart leap. I think sometimes we really put that off to the side more than we should, and focus on, climbing the ladder and moving up in the, in the corporate world. But at the end of the day, when all is said and done, you'll be left with that idea. You heard the last panel talk about legacy. You'll be left with that purpose. So I tell folks to really focus in and hone in on what your purpose is, what you've been uniquely called to do that no one else can do, because you're the one who's been called here to do it. And it could be something that's outside of the workplace as well. So I would say really take advantage of really following and looking into your purpose. And by doing that, I think all the other things kind of come together once you actually get into that space where you're doing what only you have been called to do, and the advancement. And I think Linda said, what's for me is for me. But to do that, you have to do you. And once you do you, I think everything else falls into place.
That's right. Mm-hmm. I love this theme that's happening right now of the invest in yourself and believe in yourself, and really that empowerment that goes along with women in leadership, because oftentimes women are not advancing to the same degree as men in leadership positions do. So that idea of leading with your purpose, it's going to find you whatever that career opportunity is, right? So we've talked about what you can do to advance your career. Let's take a step back and say, is there anything you would have done differently along the way?
Yes. 100%. I believe, it all works out for the good, right? It all works out for the good. Good, bad, all things in between. But I think we can all be honest and say that there are some decisions that we've made that now that we're on the other side of it, right, that made things sometimes a little harder than they maybe needed to be. So for me, that thing that I wish I had done less of was shrinking professionally to fit in or sometimes go below the radar. And I'm going to be real with you. I feel like I can be real with the Women's Foundation for Greater Memphis. So, and honestly, I did it because I had gotten some pretty strong cues from leaders. And when I say cues, I mean microaggressions, right? That made me, for survival purposes, really just not want to do too much and not draw too much attention to myself. And this was just true for me in my journey. But sometimes we stay in those places too long, and many times it's out of necessity. So I have to acknowledge that. But if it's damaging to your mental health, it's definitely not worth it. And secondly, the other advice is that, something I learned is that when you get a big opportunity, and I keep talking about, making your heart leap and on your knower, when you know it's right, you got to go. You got to go. There have been opportunities that I look back and I missed it because either I was afraid or maybe I shared it with someone close to me who I love, and they were like, oh, no, Nika, you can't do that. And sometimes that advice from mentors and all these other really, really talented, smart people is good advice. And sometimes you have to really go with what's in your spirit and what you know is the best next step for you. And they were all speaking to me from a place of support, right? They wanted what was best for me, but there will be times when all of us will be confronted with understanding that what's right for me may seem wrong to someone else, right? So we have to have the courage to move forward and do it anyway.
100%.
Agreed. Any other thoughts on things you would change? It's good. It's good. Hindsight's good learning opportunity, right?
Sure.
I want to piggyback on what Nika said, and I felt earlier in my career, and I was behind, and I wore it as a badge of honor too. I work behind the scenes. I do my stuff behind the scenes, and that's not always good. And I look at my adult daughters, and I'm so proud of them. They live out loud. They take credit for what they do. They shine brightly, and I just think about where I could have been in my career had I not been this proud behind the scenes worker. And there's a place for the behind the scenes, but you live out loud, celebrate you when you accomplish things. I mean, I would, that's good. Thank you for that compliment. I wouldn't even accept a compliment, but working behind the scenes and accepting that behind the scenes work, I wish I'd done that differently early in my career.
Because you never know who you could have inspired.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And so let's talk about leadership for a moment. I think this is particularly an important question because I think obviously we all agree that more women need to be in leadership positions. What do you think can shape someone's path towards leadership? Or maybe let's start with, how do you define a good leader and what that looks like for a woman on that journey?
Well, I think we could spend all afternoon talking about how to define a leader. And I think that there are all different styles that are effective. But what I've been reflecting on recently is just thinking about being good at, talking about the small things, starting out, wanting to not just be a leader because you want to tell people what to do, but how you can, bring people who believe in your whatever you're doing, you're passionate about, and trying to rally those people who have the same interests and common goals. But as an individual, how I can just be good at the basics. This is very tactical, but like doing what I say I'm going to do, following through. Very simple things, ladies, that I find myself, okay, want to be the person that people can rely on, that I'm transparent, that they can trust me, that if I say I'm going to do it. Now, we know life happens, and I'm not talking about those situations where we have to pause because something unexpected or an emergency happened. But being that person, starting out as an individual, thinking about what I can control, how I can make sure I am doing the very basics to the best of my ability, showing up on time, being there, not being a flake, on just the regular day, so that I am the person that when there's an opportunity out there that others are going to say, hey, why don't we ask Stephanie if she would do that, that my name would pop up to the top of mind. So just to me, and as I just think about who I look for and the qualities that I look for when I'm trying to develop a team, is people that are just very good at the basics. And I'm also going to flip and say that know how to take care of themselves too, and that also know how to have boundaries that best align with their life. I firmly believe that oftentimes the answer isn't just no, but maybe it's just not now. Maybe I'm in a season that's not good, and I respect women who are willing to say, you know what, I would love to do that, but this is not good timing. And I'm not going to try to talk her into something because her life has, other obligations and responsibilities that are so important right now. But really, realizing that we can all be super women. It may just be that we're not doing everything at the same time on our journey.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's good. I think we heard the last panel talk a lot about authenticity, and I think that's the big piece. I think by us being authentic, because what we bring, our unique selves, our real selves to the workplace, it makes everything better. But sometimes we have to really think about the idea around what makes a successful worker, what makes a successful leader. And sometimes that idea of even professionalism is rooted in standards that don't always make room for authenticity, if we're being honest, right? So as women, as we do that, as we bring our authentic selves into the workplace, we also have to have the same conversation with the leaders and those who shape policy, who shape process, and who shape systems, saying that they also need to look for ways to create safe spaces for women to be their best selves and their whole selves in the workplace. We can't put all the responsibility just on the women to do more, speak up, be courageous. Yes, that's part of it. But there's also, if they're not coming into and operating in a system, right, that makes these actions safe, you can't have one without the other. We kind of joke in our household sometimes about the whole idea of recycling. Like, you got to recycle to be a good person. But I'm like, where am I getting this stuff to actually recycle? Why do I have to be in charge of it, right? So sometimes we don't talk about the larger, these bigger systems, and really focus on the person. So while we have the actions that we want women to take to be more authentic, it's also critical that we talk about the systems and strongly encourage leaders, decision makers, and influencers to do what they can within their sphere of influence to really create spaces where women can be supported.
Excellent. And let me ask one more question before we jump into Q&A, because I think this question is important. Now, if you're anything like me, you weren't raised with the understanding that you shouldn't speak up. I just blurt things out as they come to my mind, right? But that's hard for a lot of people to do. So here's the question. What are your thoughts on empowering women to feel confident to speak up in the workplace?
I'll take that. It might sound cliche, but and we heard it in the other panel, but if you are in a room, you need to own and know that you are supposed to be in that space. If you're in that space at that table, you are supposed to be at that table. So do not shortchange yourself. Don't overthink it. If you have an idea, share your idea. If you have a solution for something, make sure you share that solution. You are in that space for a reason. It's because you have talent, you have skills, you are qualified to be in that space. So always own your role and own your seat at the table or your space in the room.
Excellent. And may I just point out Ruby Bright's comment, the wonderful Ruby Bright. Linda, your work and your accomplishments were always present to your colleagues in philanthropic work. You inspired me over 20 years ago. Your work is bold and speaks volumes about your achievements. Oh, wonderful. That's so nice to hear. Any other thoughts on empowerment? Because I know it can be very scary for not just women, but for anyone in that role to speak up, have a solution, have an idea, and share that. Nika, what are your thoughts?
Well, my approach is that I think leaders can really create a space by establishing what's called psychological safety. And I don't know if that's a term that many folks have heard. And what it simply means is that it's the idea that you can speak up ask questions, disagree without the fear of being punished, humiliated, or demeaned. So it comes from work from an author, Dr. Amy Edmondson, who wrote a book called The Fearless Organization. And she talks about how leaders, we have this natural reaction and a response that says, like, why don't more people speak up? You should use your voice more, speak up. But she urges us as leaders to flip that and ask ourselves, what could I have possibly done as a leader that hasn't created a space where people feel like they can speak up? Because we assume the people who are around us are smart. We assume that they're well-intentioned, that they want what's best for the organization. So if they aren't speaking up, Dr. Edmondson would say it's always on the leader. So it's a different way of looking at it. So if we're in the workplace and we want to improve performance, if we want greater creativity, if we want more innovation, you can't do that with a team that's only going to agree with you and nod every time you say something, right? Or folks who won't speak up due to a lack of psychological safety. They're fearful about how they will come across. So it's a different way of approaching it, but I hope it's one that leaders will maybe start considering.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. I think oftentimes we forget that we can learn, whether in the business world or in our nonprofit work, that we can learn as much from someone who has a different perspective, actually probably more than someone who sees the world like we do. And so it helps you get the better outcome. It's, oh, well, I never thought about it that way because my life experience is different from that. And so that is so important. And I love that challenge in making sure that when I think about discussions, how I can make sure that I am making room and making that a welcomed environment so that everybody feels like they can express their opinions or their thoughts that may not be what the group thinks, because each perspective really can add value that enhances whatever you're trying to do, the final outcome.
Wonderful. This has been an amazing conversation and discussion about leadership. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom. Let's open this up to the audience and see if they have any questions for our esteemed panelists here. Feel free to throw those in the chat. And while we're waiting on those, any final thoughts on leadership in general and your take on leadership?
I think I like the question about folks making shifts and pivoting through careers and different industries. Just with my background, just kind of being, in a lot of different places. So I always tell people that the advice that I give around that piece as we look to pivot is that really reflect on reasons. And someone asked me this question not too long ago about, how did you make that shift? How did you pivot from one industry to the next? And I always tell them the first thing to stop and just really, really, really reflect on why you're trying to make this change, because sometimes it's not really about the industry. Sometimes it's just where you work right now. And sometimes it's just really like the people that you're working with or a specific leader. So taking inventory of those skills, always looking to upskill, looking at ways that you can align the work that you're doing, your previous experience, to even the terminology and the research and things that are happening in the industry where you want to look. And just understanding your gaps, always upskilling, and tapping into networks, because sometimes we think we want something because we see it on LinkedIn. It seems like it's really exciting, but if you can tap into a network and find someone who is really, really doing it, and find out what that day-to-day may actually look like. Sometimes you think the grass is greener, but sometimes we try to do a pivot and we end up leaving one place where we've been in the red to just go to another place with a different title and a different industry because we're still in the red. So always doing that due diligence, coming back to purpose, and just making sure that you're following not a title, not following a salary, but you really are following purpose, and all those other things will fall in place.
I agree with that. And then, understanding what type of leader you are. There are different type of leadership styles, making sure you're surrounding yourself with people who can fill in those gaps that you have. And really knowing what it means to be a leader. Your job is not to tell people what to do. It's to motivate people. It's to inspire people. It's to help them see the vision of the organization. So really understanding what leadership is, and then what's your leadership style? What are you bringing to the table, and how are you going to make the organization better and those around you better? It's not just about being the boss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stephanie, any parting words as we wait for some questions to roll in?
I don't think, other than just ditto to what they said, I think that's really it, the inspiration. How are you inspiring those around you to be their best selves? Not like you, but helping them shine as individuals. And when everybody's bringing their best self to the table, then you know that you've got an exceptional team.
Agreed. Let me ask you this: what to piggyback on something that Nika said? How does one go about networking? Because I'm terrible at it personally, and I'm newer to Memphis, so I don't have a big network as it is. So, what is your advice in terms of reaching out to people, building those relationships?
Well, no, not shameless plug for the Women's Foundation and the work that the foundation does, which is absolutely exceptional in the outcome and the impact that it's making in the community, but also for connecting women who are like-minded as far as I know we're not all alike, of course, and that's good, but like-minded and caring about community work, caring about making a difference in the community. And you're going to find women who are in all different industries. And so, but yet you have that commonality because you want to, be your best self, hopefully, and also improve the community. So I would say nonprofit work in this community, as you alluded to earlier, there's so many opportunities to get involved and to meet women and men through that work. And then, I've already had this happen as in preparing for this panel, someone that I'm going to go to lunch with, we found a common ground. And so I think that's one way, is just finding areas, finding your passions, as we talked about, and then connecting with people that way, then somebody else is going to know somebody. And I'll tell you, Memphis becomes a very big, small town that way.
I've heard Memphis described as a big, small town. Excellent. So, someone had asked, let me go to the chat here, about the advice that you have received. I know we talked about that was our first question, the most important advice you received in your career, but what about in life in general? Anything stand out to you in terms of best advice or best practices?
I think
someone mentioned this earlier. Like, just don't sweat the small stuff. I guess I'm at a stage in life now. My younger self, I sweat the small stuff all the time. But now it's just like, I let it roll off my back like a duck. It's like, don't sweat the small stuff. Can't change it. When it's done, it's done.
The deed is done. That's right.
It's done. Yeah.
Nika, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Just similar to Linda, not sweating the small stuff, but also being able to just trust the process. I know me, I'm just talking about myself right now. I like to control everything. And sometimes, having the faith to just take that, don't laugh at me, but just have the faith to take that one step and trusting that, okay, I'll get what I need to make the next steps, not looking from point 1 to point 15, but just looking from point 1 to point 2 and making sure I have what I need just to make it to that next step. So enjoying the process, trying to be a little bit more present, and just having the faith to believe that the rest of those steps will actually be made visible as I continue to make my steps and do my part.
Excellent. We do have a question coming in here. How do you make a woman without a degree feel like she can move up in a company with years of experience that she has? And I think this is an important question. My mother was a teen single mom who never graduated from high school, but worked her way up in her career. It is possible. So what advice do you have for someone in that situation?
I will jump in real quickly on that. And I think it's understanding, and this is not to get too technical in HR requirements, but finding out specifically, so you're transparent, so you're honest. If some positions require a specific degree or skill set, then it may come down to, okay, I need to pursue this. I need to get this. But then also understanding in that same company or going elsewhere where the hard work and dedication and the years of service that are represented by that dedication, how that can be used, because there are many companies, and I have been in them, where degrees were not required. So I think just having honest conversations with those that are in decision-making positions to share with you, like, am I going to reach a door because I don't have this degree, a closed door? So if so, I just need to know that. And so I think finding those people who will be transparent with you would be very helpful.
Yeah, agreed. Here's another great one, which might be great for Nika, who works in diversity, equity, and inclusion. How do you make space for different personality types within an organization and balancing honoring one person's point of view without rejecting another's way of being?
I think that all goes back to the idea of around psychological safety, right? How do we create spaces where people can bring their their individual selves and still not feel like they have to assimilate or become someone else to do that. So leaders have to actually create space and create ways that they can actually be open to folks making mistakes. You can say, and I know our CEO here does this really well. When he introduces something new, he says, I don't have all the answers. I need you to take this journey with me. If I'm making some mistakes here, I need you to let me know. Instead of saying, look, this is the path forward. We're going to A plus B plus C. I need you to roll with me. Let's go, which is a very different conversation, right? So leaving that openness there, and also understand that not everyone's going to raise their hand in a meeting and say, I have an idea. So it's incumbent upon leaders to say like, hey, Linda, I noticed that when we were in the last meeting, you didn't have much to say. Did I miss something? What do you think? Where we think we're tracking on this? Is there something you'd like to add? So getting creative and getting outside of the usual ways that we actually get feedback from members of our team, and understanding that folks communicate differently. Not everyone's going to be that voice, that extrovert in the room who's going to say, hey, I got it. Here's my answer. Understand that there are other folks who learn in different ways and talk in different ways and express themselves in different ways, and being open to adjusting as leaders to make that happen.
Excellent. Anyone else want to touch on that?
I just totally agree. When I was in a role where I had to manage people, I had individuals on my team who needed to talk through a process before they would move forward. I had individuals who needed to write it out, so I would get emails from one person. So you just got to understand who you have on your team, what their communication style is, how they like to work, how they like to be led and managed too. So it's just really, like Nika said, it's incumbent on the leader to make sure that they're in the know and they understand who they have on their team and how to best maximize their talents and skills.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of the diversity, right? Because all of these different perspectives make us stronger. So you can have like this really great idea that's sitting there with the person who doesn't feel like it's safe enough for them to speak up, or they don't fit in, but you don't want to lose that opportunity there with that person either. So you have to create those spaces, and that diversity makes us stronger.
Right. Excellent. Let's wrap up with one final question. What advice do you have for someone young or newer to their careers who may not be in a leadership position currently or may be brand new to leadership? What's the number one thing that they should focus on or be aware of as they move through their journey of leadership? Open to whoever has some words of wisdom for us.
Don't spend your time trying to be a carbon copy of someone else. I think one thing that I feel fortunate is that I didn't grow up with social media. So I think the whole like FOMO, I didn't have that when I was growing up. And I think it kind of ups the stakes for a lot of younger leaders now, because you see the highlight reel of so many folks' lives now. And I know sometimes that can be discouraging because you look at yourself and you say, well, why am I not at that point? And I would encourage everyone who's young and just starting their journey in leadership to measure yourself against yourself the day before. That is what you're measuring yourself against, not what you see. Like I said, the highlight reels of what other folks are doing. They have their other challenges they're not highlighting, but for you, just to really stay focused on what that goal is, what's set inside of you that you're destined to do, and let that be your guide. Let that be your goal. Let that be the bar that you measure yourself against instead of all the other outside noise.
Mm-hmm. Excellent advice. Stephanie?
I would just add that, when you put your head on your pillow at the end of the day, like how are you fulfilled as a leader, as an individual? And so being an individual contributor, you can still be a leader as you're thinking about managing people, but what are you doing? Back to what we started this with, of finding your purpose, whether it's in your professional work, in your nonprofit work, in your family, your friends, whatever that means, finding, being true to yourself and finding what your purpose is. Then you can play all the different roles that you play in life, but, being proud when you end your day each day.
Thank you. And I know the Oscar music has started to play, right? But I wanted, Linda, any advice you want to give to the youth?
Yeah, I'll be real quick before the music cuts us off. Celebrate. Anyone who has ever worked with me knows I'm big about this, because in nonprofit work, we get so bogged down into, meeting this year's goal, and, you end the year and you start right back over and you don't have time to celebrate. But stop and celebrate those small wins. Stop and celebrate the big ones, but celebrate. You're doing great work. and you owe it to yourself to stop and celebrate, and then celebrate those people who help you get there too. So that's my advice.
Thank you so much for joining us today. You guys have been absolutely wonderful. We appreciate Linda, Stephanie, and Nika's time and wisdom. And thank you again to everyone who joined us today. I hope you learned a lot. And take it away, Women's Foundation.
Good afternoon. My name is Shantae Avant. I am the president and CEO of the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis. I would like to express my deepest appreciation for your presence and engagement at our event today. Your commitment to advancing women's leadership and empowerment is truly inspiring, and it gives us the energy and determination to continue our work here at the Women's Foundation. I would like to thank each of our panelists for sharing their stories, their insight, and each pearl of wisdom. As we approach our annual tribute luncheon next Thursday on April 20th, I want to remind everyone that this is our signature event where we come together to celebrate the progress we've made and to reaffirm our commitment to building a more just and equitable Memphis. We are excited to welcome our keynote speaker, Essence Atkins, to Memphis. She is overjoyed and so excited to be with us. But we cannot do this work alone. As we work to align people, secure resources, and coordinate community-based services, we are helping to serve over 8,000 people annually. But we rely on your generosity and support to continue our mission. I would like to give a special thanks to our presenting sponsor for the Leadership Symposium, Baptist Memorial Healthcare, for making this wonderful event possible. I'm asking each of you today to consider making a donation to the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis. Thanks to the Hyde Family Foundation, we are charged with raising $50,000 by June 30th, and it will be matched dollar for dollar. Every dollar counts, and your donation will go directly towards supporting our programs that empower the families of Memphis. When you give, we give back. Thank you for your support. I hope to see each of you at our annual tribute luncheon next Thursday at the Renaissance Convention Center on April 20th.